Hey, I'm Liv. Wanna hear all about the story of an incredibly messy trilogy? A bumbling but charming start, the epic middle, and the the end? Great! This is Still Life by Microids. But before Still Life, there was Postmortem. So let's jump into it. By the way, flashing lights warning for some of the cutscenes here. Okay, I gotta say, regardless of what lies ahead of us, this intro you get when you boot up the game goes hard.
Are we going to keep staring at each other, or are you going to invite me in?
Oh yes, forgive me. Do come in.
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Blake. Sophia Blake. Mr. McPherson, I have an offer to make. Interesting for you, vital for me.
You mentioned an interesting offer. What exactly was it?
Mr. McPherson, you've been in Paris for some time and I need your help. Only you can investigate this case. I'm ready to pay anything.
Could you give me any more details about the case? At the moment, it all seems rather nebulous.
You probably haven't heard about the Orphée case, Mr. McPherson. The newspapers have kept it quiet. A couple of American tourists were brutally murdered. They were my sister and her husband. I want to know the circumstances surrounding their death.
I don't get it. I've never worked for you before, not here nor in New York. Yet you come to me and ask me to find your sister's murderer. Why me, Miss Blake?
Your reputation, Mr. McPherson. I find your nickname spooky to be charming. I have friends who know people at the Pinkerton Agency in New York. The suspicion surrounding you is totally unfounded, naturally. You are the man I need for this investigation. Discreet, capable of seeing beyond appearances.
These murders were committed in Paris. Do you know whereabouts in Paris?
A hotel in a chic part of Paris in the 8th district. The Hôtel Orphée. They arrived there about a week ago. They were found dead in their hotel bedroom.
How did they die? Are you sure they were murdered? It may just have been a terrible accident.
The Whites were found decapitated in their hotel room, Mr. McPherson.
Are the police handling the case? If they are, it may well complicate things. Do you know the name of the inspector in charge of the investigation?
The detective in charge of the investigation is named Lebrun. You know, the police are the same in every country, Mr. McPherson. Whether you're in New York or in Paris, you mustn't be in a hurry. Lebrun is no exception.
Your sister and her husband, they were both American. What exactly were they doing in Paris?
I was supposed to meet them in Paris. You know, Mr. McPherson, visiting Europe was my sister Ruby's childhood dream. With Mr. White, her wish came true. They were so very much in love.
I don't want to seem overly interested, but why don't we settle my fees before we go any further?
This case may take you several days. I'll give you 500 straight away and 500 per day of successful investigation.
Your offer is very reasonable. I accept.
I owe you a lot, Mr. McPherson. Much more than the money I'm paying you.
To be honest, I'm not sure I should take the case. Firstly, because where there's a murder, there's a murderer. Inspector Lebrun is in a better position to arrest murderers than I am.
Mr. McPherson, I have no faith in the police. The 8th District Police Station, Lebrun especially, is trying to hush up the affair. All they care about is keeping their reputation as a chic area.
You'd like me to begin right away. I think I have all the information I need to begin. You're sure you haven't forgotten anything?
The police didn't find any items of value in the room. Yet my sister and her husband traveled very comfortably, in luxury and with old family heirlooms. It was a passion they both shared.
It is risky traveling with large sums of money. Would be a shame if they'd been killed for that reason. How valuable were these family heirlooms?
An old relic of no value. My sister was very fond of it. Of no value whatsoever.
I hope to have results quickly. I'll be in touch with you when I've made some progress in my investigation. Goodbye, Miss Blake.
I ask only one thing of you. Be discreet. The police must not suspect you're involved. If you'd like to meet me...
Okay, let's go. Investigation. You might have noticed that you can pick the dialogue options. Yeah, no. You kinda have to go through all of them, no matter if they express conflicting thoughts or... yeah. Great writing team, guys. Keep up the good work. You might have also noticed that this game looks really blurry. Like, things you can interact with look fine, but everything else is just blur. My guess is that it has something to do with the fact that you can look around where you stand, you know, like 360 degrees. I'm all for different mechanics. It's one of the things that fascinate me about these late 90s, early 2000s games, but there's probably a reason why games aren't like this. Anyways, we head over to the hotel and talk to the manager, I guess. Isidore Petit. Do you like my French accent? Yeah. We ask if the Whites were alone, and he tells us that they didn't want any visitors, and that's exactly why he refused to give out their room number to a man who asked the night of the murders. Isidore describes the man for us, and since we're artists, we're gonna try to draw a portrait of him later. We then talk to the barman, who informs us that a man sat by the window at the hotel's restaurant for hours the night of the murder, but urges us to go to the police if we want more information. Okay, I have to say it. This does not look like a chic luxury hotel, and I don't think it's the Blur this time. Everything here just sort of looks decrepit. I mean, isn't this hotel supposed to be in its prime? If they were already going downhill, they wouldn't be as concerned with their reputation, let alone have the means to drown out the case. Also, it kinda has no personality, it's just generic hotel. I guess this is Paris for you? We wanna go up and take a look at the scene of the crime, but ain't no way Isidore's gonna let us, so we have to find a way to snoop around. For now, we head over to the police station, where we meet this cop. Blah blah blah, he doesn't want to give us information on the case, so we give him a bottle of wine and he slides over the White's files. Let's see, blah blah, returned around 11 p.m, blah blah, neighbor Mrs. Loiseau said that the door was left open around midnight, called the police upon discovery of the bodies. Oh, listen to this. The doorboy resigned that evening. Theo Mallet. Mallet. We'll see you soon, sir. What else? Oh, Mrs. Loiseau is a psychic. Cool. She also gives a description of a man she saw running away from the scene moments before she discovered the bodies, and it seems to be the same guy who was asking about the room number. Crime scene details: mysterious fine purple powder was found on the ground, a conspicuous absence of valuables, and 2 ancient gold coins were found in their mouths. Due to the violent nature of the crime, Dr. Kaufner was asked to draw a psychological profile of the killer. Great. So here we grab all the descriptions Isidore and Mrs. Loiseau gave and draw this portrait. So let's head back to the hotel to... What is this?
And me who found the studio tiny. Hoping that his break did not...
Here we go again.
And make sure you do not drop it, young man.
Don't worry about it, Mr. Petit. Oh. This is really heavy. Talk about starting a new job on the wrong foot.
Ow! Ow!
Just one more step.
Ooh.
And there we go. Whew.
It's a good thing I didn't have the Atlantic to cross.
Okay, great. Hope we don't have to watch that cutscene every time we go up. But like, of course the door's locked. What did you expect? As we're leaving though, Mrs. Loiseau invites us in to talk. And apparently Mac is also sort of a psychic. He has visions of murders. Oh, right. So that's what the first scene was. I hadn't made that connection. But anyways, she's a psychic in a video game. Of course she goes on a ramble about the evil and doesn't say anything useful. But I gotta say, I love her room. Up until now, post-mortem feels very weird. Some locations are completely soulless and others are really charming. Usually it's one or the other. My guess is that the soulless places are just, stock generic hotel, generic police station, and the charming ones like Mrs. Wazo's or our own weird apartment are based off of real locations, but whatever. We go talk to the barman again, and he says that the mysterious man chatted for a while with Malay, the doorman who resigned. Malay's got a gambling addiction, so he's always owing people money, but this time it was the man who gave him money, not the other way around. The man arrived at 8 p.m. and left at 11 p.m., exactly the time the whites arrived. He also tells us that Theo usually hangs out at the Alembic Bistro, so we'll see if he's there later. Well, we don't have anything else to do here, so we go visit Dr. Kaufner at the sanatorium.
Come in.
Dr. Frank Kaufner?
What can I do for you, sir?
I'm Gustav McPherson. I've come here to ask you a few questions about the White case.
Tell me what you want to hear. Did Inspector Lebrun send you, Mr. McPherson?
I'm a private eye.
A private detective? Then someone is showing an interest in the White's murder.
A person who wishes to remain anonymous is paying me to investigate.
We all have a reputation to protect.
Appearances can sometimes be deceptive, Dr. Kaufner. That's why I would like to clarify this situation by gathering as much information as possible.
I am at your disposal, Mr. McPherson. How can I help you?
What can you tell me about the scene of the crime? The police have released very few details.
The man who committed this murder, and I stress the fact that he is a man, is probably quite overwhelmed at the present time. This crime was committed under the influence of a sudden impulse, without premeditation. His act is now haunting him. He is not himself.
And you think the motive for the murder was theft?
That is what the police say.
What could be the motive of such a crime?
Love, hate, revenge. Those are the three reasons behind so much human bloodshed, Mr. McPherson. And do you have a suspect, Mr. McPherson?
I'm on the same trail as the police. Only I am surer of my hunch.
It has been a most pleasant conversation, but unfortunately, I cannot afford you more time, Mr. McPherson. I hope I have satisfied your curiosity.
Okay, if you say so, Doctor. Now on to the Alembic.
Hey, cutie. We've not seen you in ages.
Berenice, what a surprise. Look, I'm in a bit of a hurry. Do you know a certain Theo Malay?
No. But surely the owner does. You're lucky he's in right now. Your owner knows everyone, you know.
You're as charming as ever. Thank you, Berenice.
Call me baby like everybody else. Right, I've got to run too, cutie. You know, work. See you soon, okay?
Yes, anyway, you know my address. Come up and see me sometime. Ciao.
Ciao!
Fine, I'm gonna pay this game a compliment before complaining again. I quite like the characters. McPherson, Berenice, Dr. Kaufner, and others, they're all very charismatic, and I really like the fact that there are actors in this play. In other news though, the soundtrack. We're 1 hour in, and this is the first time the music changed. Yeah, the same blasted song plays in like 95% of the locations. It's pleasant elevator music, so you can go for quite a while before wanting to rip your hair out, but that moment definitely arrives. And the Alembic, God almighty. I don't know if the blurry frozen people make it look better or worse, Like, I hate it, but technical limitations, blah blah blah, maybe it would have looked even more insane without them. Anyways, Theo is playing cards with the owner, Hulo, and he actually wins for once. We sit down to talk to him, and I gotta say, I don't watch a lot of French movies, but I'd be willing to bet that Malay was lifted straight out of one. Like, I look at his low poly self and I can just see his movie star counterpart. Anyways, let's see what he has to say for himself.
I get the feeling I've seen you before somewhere. Have you ever been to New York? Oh, no, Mac. I'm so absent-minded sometimes. The jacket. The Orphée. You're a doorman at the Orphée.
If you are interested in the suit, I will give you a good deal. As far as I'm concerned, it is ancient history.
You didn't like your job anymore. Yet the Orphée is a prestigious hotel.
You are very nosy. Do you want my old job or something?
Maybe the hotel did not pay you enough. Or maybe you found other sources of income.
I'm the sole heir of some old fart or other. I'm taking the first train back to Brittany.
You must admit, it's most uncommon to come into an inheritance right in the middle of the Nantes Cafe on the night of a murder.
I don't see what I could tell you.
You deny having met any man with a mustache at the Nantes Cafe on the night of the murder. Yet you were seen there.
Did I hear right? You are calling me a liar? Well, the liar bids you farewell. Good day to you, sir.
And here I get very stuck. I talk to everyone and no one's saying anything else, so yeah, it's walkthrough time. Oh, apparently I drew the wrong guy. And I locked myself out of the dialogue option where the barman gives us further descriptions of the suspect. The stupidest part is that after I draw the right guy and go talk to the barman again, the option is there. Why would the game do this? Regardless, we go back to the Alembic to confront Malay and oh, the game doesn't like this. Let's try again. We go back to the Alembic to confront Malay with... no, the game definitely doesn't like that. What if we go talk to Mrs. Loiseau about our new portrait instead? No, the game doesn't like that. Give me a minute. So the game crashed a few more times before I found the method that actually worked, thanks to Anatoly for the guide. So finally we go confront Malay with the right portrait this time, and...
Here, the Yank is back.
I have something to show you. Do you recognize this man? That's all very well, but how am I going to find that man now? He'll never come back to the Alembic.
I knew the Yanks were strange, but to talk to yourself out loud, and in French to boot?
Some are stranger than others.
See you soon.
I mean, you could have just kept following him. Just run. But I guess you were back in front of the alembic and Berenice was just too irresistible. I understand you, Mac. We now go back to Mrs. Loiseau to show her the portrait and she says that there is a resemblance, but she doesn't feel evil in him. Wow, so helpful, thank you so much. We then head over to the police like, hey, I have a portrait of the suspect. The policeman seems to recognize the man, muttering the name Jacques Heloin to himself. We are now allowed to talk to Inspector Lebrun, who's leading the investigation. He informs us that Heloin is also a private detective, an ex-cop, big trouble, and gives us his address. Gotta love these contradicting antics. He also tells us that Theo Malay is dead. That only serves to implicate Heloin further. This is a really interesting turn to the story. A private detective not being able to use the private detective card and finding himself as the prime suspect of a gruesome and mysterious murder. We now head over to his address, and I have to say that these cutscenes that show up the first time you go to a location look really off. Like, they don't look like places. They look more like little toy buildings. Anyways, you already know that the graphics of Postmortem are really off, so moving on. The door's locked. Are we surprised? We head over to the Alembic and talk to Hulo, our friend, owner of the establishment and local shady guy. We ask him for some lockpicking tools, and he asks us to find some differences between a painting and its copy first. Oh, for God's sake. Now, I feel the need to remind you, what you're seeing on your screen is zoomed in. This is what the game looks like to me over here. At least it's easy to switch from one painting to the other. After painstakingly scouring the paintings for differences, I finally find all of them, give them back, and Hulo gives us the lockpicking tools. Finally. Wait, how do I... Okay, walkthrough time, this is crazy. There are 4 points where you can insert the tools with 3 different positions each. If McPherson at least said something to hint at how I'm supposed to know if a tool is in the right place, this would be doable. But as things stand, jeez. So you have to have tools in all 4 points. If it moves a lot when you turn a knob, it's the wrong tool for the spot. If it moves just a little, it's the right tool but wrong position. If it stays still, it's correct. This is actually a cool way of making a lockpicking puzzle, but not without any hints at all. We're now in Heloin's office, and something that is sorely missed in Postmortem is more interactable stuff. Like, McPherson's a cool guy, I'd love to hear his comments about this and that. And like, this game is from 2002. At that point, the main character having comments about every single door and trash can in the game was already a staple of point and click. So someone actually made the creative decision to leave that out of Postmortem. Anyways, here there's a safe to which we actually need a key. And while we're snooping through his files, we find a letter of appointment, signed Grégoire de Alpin. But right then and there, Helen's mom comes in.
But who are you? What do you want?
My name is McPherson. I expected to find Jacques Elouin here. Do you know where he is?
My son is away. He's not here. Why do you want to see him?
Madame, Elouin is wanted by the police for murder.
Liar! I do not believe you. Jacques is not a criminal. Get out! He's not here! Scram!
Any idea where he may be hiding?
Hiding? I swear he's not here. Why would he hide? I've not seen him for several days. I have no idea where he is.
You're lying, Madame Elouin. Tell me where I can find your son. I mean him no harm. On the contrary, I need to talk to him.
You do not want to harm him. Can I trust you? Please understand, Elouin has not done anything. He's afraid, that's all. He's not hiding, but he needs help. My son is up there. Follow me. He's upstairs. Just go on up.
Right. Jacques Elouin, I'm arresting you for the murder of Regis and Ruby White.
I'm innocent. I may have led the murderer to the Eatons, but I did not kill them.
The Eatons? What are you talking about?
It's a long story, but this is what happened. It was after a rather tiresome case. A story of adultery that ended badly. The husband had hired me because his wife had supposedly run off with the money. She told quite another story, of course. I will spare you the details. I came home shattered. During my absence, a certain De Alpin had come by about some employees who had swindled him. I knew that De Alpin was a banker and that there would be plenty of money in it, but I was dead on my feet. So I told my mother to call him back and tell him to get lost. That's when she showed me the check. So, off I went again.
I feel kind of, I don't know, embarrassed to complain more about this game, but some of the voice actors here... I mean, yeah, the dialogue is poorly written and doesn't do them any favors, but they're also not doing the dialogue any favors with these performances. Anyways, we're playing as Helloa now, investigating the theft of De Alpin's prized possession, which was stolen by siblings Paul and Gracie Eaton. We tried to go talk to him, but his door has this really intricate lock. No doorbell, no nothing. We ain't talking to our employer, that's for sure. Well, we shouldn't have expected less from the heir of an old family, filthy rich banker, and eccentric Parisian. We head over to the Eaton's address, and their landlady says that they're not siblings, but actually a couple. Also, I think that the voice actress is so funny here. Like, it's obviously a young woman making a poor old lady impression, but there's so much passion behind it. I love it so much.
Those dirty kids, they roll around in the mud all day. And who scrubs? Old Muggins here. These bloody rascals really want to drive me up the wall. I have a floor to scrub, so you with the mustache, clear off or I'll chuck you out on your ear.
She also says that they've been gone for 3 days without paying the bill. Outrageous. There's also a random ball laying around in the courtyard here, which we take. This is one of the locations which I love. Something that fascinates me about architecture, especially in Europe, is when a building is adapted to serve a purpose to which it wasn't originally intended. So some things feel very off, and this apartment building feels very like that. The construction also seems to be a bit too tall, but if you've been paying attention, someone messed up when making the models and we have the point of view of a 7-year-old child. So yeah. We then head over to the Alembic, where we meet Bernice and talk about our investigation. Here, the poorly written dialogue comes back with a vengeance. So usually when you can't pick the dialogue, it's mostly for character development or to get different endings. And you pick one, you get locked out of the others, the conversation continues. That's how things usually work. But here, as I've already said, you have to go through all the topics, even if they express completely opposite views from one another. And sometimes you talk about X, and you're actually really interested in Z, so you pick that option, but now you have to go back and talk about Y, and it's kinda confusing. I mean, did you fear that the young people of 2002 buying a point-and-click mystery game wouldn't have the attention span to listen to a conversation without it having to be interactive? Jesus Christ! Anyways, here's what Bebe tells us about the Ethans. Paul, the man, was friends with Hulot and was always hanging out at the bistro. At first he had a British accent, but then after a few nights and a few drinks, he dropped the accent. What a professional. He talked about a big scam, but they were always talking in English, so Berenice didn't catch everything. She's also pretty sure that it's the woman, Gracie, who's pulling the strings. The owner, Hulot, went rushing out to a restaurant to meet the Ethans just before we arrived, but Bebe doesn't know which one. Well, back to the Ethans' former address. We use the ball on these plants here so that the old lady gets out of the way and we can investigate their apartment. Here we find one of Dr. Kaufner's calling cards and some notes on a secret society called Brotherhood of the Supreme Order of the Rosy Cross, which seems to be a weird parody of Rosicrucian Brotherhood. But somehow Brotherhood of the Supreme Order of the Rosy Cross just sounds really stupid, and I don't know if it's intentional or not. Oh, this reminds me, it is completely irrelevant, but my uncle dabbles in the occult, right? And one time I found a book on his shelf about the Rosicrucian houses, just descriptions of the Brotherhood's houses in different cities and stuff. Which also reminds me, books about the occult are usually so boring and poorly written. You think that's on purpose? To hide the secrets of the order from the curious? I remember trying to read one that had an actual plot on top of the occult stuff, and it was so poorly written. It was basically look at me, I'm a Freemason, and we know everything that's happening in the universe. Anyways, back to the game. Delpan and Dr. Kaufner are part of the Brotherhood, with the former being the leader, the Supreme Brother. The plan was for Gracie, or Faye, to pretend to be the reincarnation of Adeline, and it seemed like she succeeded in infiltrating the Brotherhood with that scheme. The Alpan supposedly promised Faye could see the head of Baphomet once he had transmigrated. Ooh, the plot thickens, things get supernatural! For all the flaws post-mortem has, the story is actually pretty cool. We then go talk to Dr. Kaufner, who seems uncomfortable with our presence but admits that he's the one who introduced Gracie Ethan to the Order. Okay, now on to the Brotherhood's headquarters, where the guy at the door tells us the name of the Alpan's favorite restaurant after a bit of pressure. It's this one called Chez Alexandre. That I don't know how to say that. It's they say it in the game, but I forgot. Chez Alexandre, Chez Alexandre, whatever. We asked the receptionist about the American couple, describing them, and he says that he does indeed recognize that description, but they were the Whites, not the Ethans, and that they put all their meals on the hotel bill, the Orphée Hotel. You know what? Walking around this restaurant, I think I prefer the blurry people of the Alembic. Well, at the Orphée, of course Petit doesn't want to give us their room number or any information about them, really. That's when we're approached by Malay, who tells us to meet him at the hotel restaurant if we want info on the Whites. Yes, their poses are extremely awkward. I have no idea. I mean, come on, you're game developers. Is this the best you can do? Tale tells us that the Whites have been here for 3 days, never host visitors, rarely leave the room, they've never stayed here before, and that the woman just dyed her hair red. Then the couple returns at around 11 p.m. And then...
Even so, I would like to take a quick look. Room 507. Just a quick look. That's when I saw the most amazing thing in my life. I do not know if it was the smoke that blurred my vision, but one thing is for sure. That creature was not trying to keep them warm. And the damn creature saw me. I have fought in the war, you know, but I've never seen the likes of that. When its eyes stared at me, I ran. Yes, I fled like a little kid. There must have been something in the air because I fainted right after that. I came around later, near the Alambic. That's where you saw me. Mom? Is that you?
Ah, no. Jacques Alouin. I'm arresting you for the double murder of the Whites.
Believe me, I'm not the culprit. Speak to my mother, she'll give you the proof.
Well, thank you for your help. What? Yes, I had you followed, and you led us straight to the culprit. No, something is off. I've been tricked like a sucker. But by who?
Well, damn. We ask... Wait, what was our employer's name? It's been so long and she never picks up the phone, so I forgot. Okay, Sophia Blake. We asked to meet up with her and she suggests the Chez Alexander restaurant. Well, miss, things are about to go down.
If you want to see me, Mr. McPherson, I imagine it's because you've made some headway.
Actually, several new occurrences have come to light. Occurrences that require an explanation from you, Miss Blake.
I don't understand, Mr. McPherson. What do you mean?
What I have learned totally contradicts what you said about the Whites. Who were they really?
Ruby White was my younger sister, and Regis White was her husband. I already told you, Mr. McPherson.
I'm sorry, Miss Blake, but I cannot continue working under these conditions.
Don't leave me alone, Mr. McPherson. My life's in danger. I'm sorry I tricked you. I am going to tell you everything about the danger that we're in. What do you want to know?
In the course of my investigations, I was told about a much coveted object, the head of Baphomet. Does that mean anything to you?
The object has been in my husband's family for generations, Mr. McPherson. I didn't lie to you. Grégoire de Alpin stole it from us. My husband, already weak from his illness, died of sorrow. I now want to retrieve what is rightfully mine and avenge the memory of the man I loved.
Then you recognize the existence of this man, Grégoire d'Alpin. Who is he really?
A madman, blinded by an obsession to possess a supposedly valuable relic. The head of Baphomet. By stealing it, he destroyed my life. D'Alpin led my husband to his death, my family to ruin.
What exactly is the importance of this object, this head of Baphomet? And why is d'Alpin so anxious to get hold of it?
I don't really know. My husband was very secretive about the value of the head of Baphomet. As for me, I simply want to retrieve what is rightfully mine. But d'Alpin and his lot venerate the relic, surrounded with many legends. Legends of immortality. As you grow old, these legends suddenly become a source of hope, a source of life and death.
Ruby and Regis White never existed, not as you described them anyway. Who were they really?
I don't have a sister, Mr. McPherson. Ruby White's real name was Faye Johnson, and Jerome Johnson was her real husband. I hired them, a terrible mistake on my part, but I'm not responsible for their death.
What were they doing in Paris? I want the truth, Miss Blake.
They were supposed to retrieve the object that was stolen from me. Everything was planned in minute detail. They failed. Their death is a regrettable accident.
Who, in your opinion, killed the Whites?
The Whites were criminals, Mr. McPherson. They made a foolish mistake. They're dead. Aside from their own carelessness, it can only be because of the man who is behind all of this, Grégoire de Alpin.
Do you think the killer will strike again?
He would do anything to achieve his aim, Mr. McPherson. Everyone who has crossed his path is in danger. The man is insane. He'll kill again. You must understand that you are the only one who can stop him. We have to put an end to this madness. The object must be found before other heads roll.
Why so many identities?
They were professional con artists, Mr. McPherson. As soon as they occupied their room at the Hôtel Orphée, they became the Whites, a rich couple on vacation. It was also the signal that they had pulled it off. I was supposed to take delivery of the merchandise. Unfortunately, they were killed in the meantime.
Go and tell the police what you have told me. Inspector Lebrun will be glad to help you. He'll understand, I'm sure.
You still haven't understood. The police do not want a part of this. De Alpin has the Paris police in his pocket, Mr. McPherson. Paris is just a puppet on his string.
That is a tragic story, Miss Blake. Why didn't you tell me the truth from the outset?
I was alone in Paris, confronted by a fearless enemy. I had to act quickly and discreetly. If you had refused to help me, Mr. McPherson, I would have had no one else. I didn't want to be dishonest with you.
Not sure I buy all that, but hey, let's see this mystery through to the end. We go back to Helouan's place and tell his mom that we think he's innocent, and she gives us the key to that safe in one of the drawers. In there we find his notes about the case. Well, we already went through all that during his section, but it's nice for McPherson to have them, I guess. Up in his little hiding room, we grab a flashlight. Whoa, what an efficient hiding room. Not only does it have an uncovered window, you also keep a flashlight in here. Genius. Over at the Brotherhood's meeting place, we try to convince this guy to let us in, but he doesn't. However, he tells us that De Alpin isn't the Supreme Brother anymore, Kofner having taken that role. That is suspicious. People who found a secret order and become their leader don't just give that spot away. Anyways, we now go talk to Berenice and ask her to make a fake letter of introduction to the Brotherhood, based off of some paper we picked up along the way. Honestly, I don't even know anymore. The inventory in postmortem is really messy, like look at this. While we wait for the letter, we go over to the sanatorium and this time we have to sneak in. There's a puzzle with these levers and that open and close different gates, and like, you could not pay me money for me to explain the solution to you. I just kind of followed my heart. In Kofner's office, there are these triangle things that we can take. I'm not sure why, but yay, free stuff. We also find Gracie Eaton's medical file, Dr. Kofner's diary, which I never managed to open, and a wax cylinder titled The Cycle of the Phoenix. Well, okay, one step at a time. We grab the letter of introduction from Bebe and try giving it to the doorman, but he just stares at us like this. Okay, let's go do something else. Wait, actually, we got De Alpin's medical file? He was convinced that he has been alive since the 13th century, had been part of the Order of the Templars. Adeline, the woman Gracie pretended to be, was his forbidden love, the daughter of his first victim, the first body he possessed. Yeah, it's a soul transfer type of immortality. After several hypnosis sessions, Dr. Kofner starts to believe the whole immortality soul transfer ordeal, and the rest is history. We go talk to Mrs. Loiseau, and it's useless as always, but she has a gramophone, so we can listen to the wax cylinder we found in Kofner's office.
did I realize how great an impact dealing with this man would have on me, on my career, on my own destiny. His soul has passed from body to body down through the centuries. The cycle of the phoenix. He is the phoenix, risen from the ashes. He has confided in me the secret of his power, of his riches, the head of Baphomet. I am very familiar with the myth. The Companion's library featured more than one legend on the subject. Grégoire d'Alpin claims to have been in possession of the head since the Middle Ages. He acquired it on behalf of the Knights Templar and kept it after their dissolution. They dare to call my manifesto a scientific fairy tale. They think they're the leading experts in psychoanalysis. Vienna. I will prove my theory to them. I will prove that Grégoire d'Alpin is immortal. Slowly but surely, my role in d'Alpin's existence has grown in importance. Using hypnosis, I have managed to impose my will upon him, all the while espousing his ambitions. I shall be his successor as the head of the Companions. His power, his riches, the Baphomet, it will all be mine. I shall be his heir. The time has come. This evening, d'Alpin wishes to see me at his manor. Gracie Eaton, his Adeline, will be there. Tonight, I shall become the greatest. Neither Vienna nor d'Alpin can stop me now. The old fool is convinced that I'm ready to receive his soul. Ready to receive his riches, more like. And the influence that comes with them, then Vienna shall pay for its insolence.
Okay, so Dr. Kaufner was in on it to get the head for himself. Got it. By the way, while we progress with the investigation, I'm also double checking everything that Helloan told us, but you already know, I'm just skipping that part. Everything he said is true. Now we go back to the hotel. Apparently the door to the room next to the scene of the crime is open. And there's a door connecting the two rooms? Why? God, why didn't the respectable hotel brick this door? What in the... Anyways, it gives us a way in. We just have to push this newspaper under the door, push the key out of the keyhole so that it falls on the newspaper and pull it back towards us. Small nitpick. Yes, we do carry a sketchbook with us. No, we can't use our own pencil to push the key out. Anyways, here we are. And here I have another complaint. Up until now, the navigation was really easy and intuitive. I never got physically stuck in one place. And for some reason that changes in room 507. You can't easily go from point A to point B. You have to hover your mouse over really specific spots in order to be able to advance. I mean, my only guess is that Mac doesn't want to mess with the scene of the crime, but it just becomes annoying. Moving on, in here we find a ring with the engraving Fae, glass shards from the vial which contain the inebriating purple substance, and a little key on the bedside table. Oh, and in the bathroom sink there are traces of what seems to be black hair dye. Well, back to the Eaton's apartment, we use the key to open this box, where we get their passports, a sketch of what I assume is the head of Baphomet, and a letter hiring them and detailing the plan. Now, remember the weird lock in Delpen's door? Turns out that the triangles we got from Dr. Kaufner's office opened that. Delpen's place is kinda weird, but hey, he's an eccentric. Because down here, it's basically a museum. Like, there's this long corridor with portraits and portraits and portraits, and upstairs there's his bedroom with this so unblurry object that, hey, isn't actually interactable. Yeah, I don't know either. Then there's these stained glass windows, and then a library. Very opulent and bare bones at the same time, without being minimalist. Impressive! Here we grab this box of matches, a letter that seems to have something about his bills, but loading it properly is above post-mortem's pay grade, and this ring thing. Yeah, there's this contraption, but if it has anything to do with the unloadable piece of paper, then it's quite literally impossible to finish this game without a walkthrough, no matter how puzzle smart you are. We'll be back later when I run out of things to do. Now, for some reason, my fake letter of introduction wasn't working, so I had to ask Bebe for another one. Am I even paying her for this? I'm so sorry if I'm not, Berenice. I only control this guy to a certain extent. So, with the new letter in hand, we actually managed to infiltrate the Brotherhood's headquarters. Here, there's a cozy lounge, a place for rituals, and a library. Here we steal a coin for no apparent reason, and there's a book about the Templars' history, blah blah blah. As someone who's read an entire actual book on the subject, the Crusades started to stop the infighting in Europe. Then the Templars were founded to fight off the unfaithful and keep Christian travelers safe. And then they were disbanded when it became politically interesting to do so. There's also a numeristic treatise, but I can't read it, so we'll just keep rolling with the punches. If I squint, I can see that the contraption in the library serves to input dates, and there are 3 dates under the stained glass windows, so... Yeah, this 3 times over. This was moving so slow that at one point I actually wondered if I was even on the right track, but alas, I was! There's a secret passage. And down we go, and I'm gonna punch the person who modeled this place. I cannot for the life of me see any indication that this is anything other than a dead end, but down we go again, and here we reach an alchemy lab. Oh, no. My patience with this game is over. I'm reading the walkthrough. Look at this! Look at it! I don't know anything about ciphers. There was no book, nothing Max said, no tip, nothing. What do you want from me? Well, here's what the secret message says.
But he couldn't stop me from joining the Templars. I have to try to cleanse myself of their sin of the flesh. Because of him and my mother, my soul may already be condemned to hell. Only the balm of the Templars' faith can rid it of the mortal sin engraved upon it. On October 9th, Saint Denis Day, I finally discovered the traces of the head. Blessed by Saint Denis, he who smiles down on me in all his beatitude to help me leave my soul. Yes, Saint Denis is smiling on me. The head purifies me. As God is my witness, I, Simon le Bel, in this year of our Lord, 1305, shall enter the body of Pierre le Bel de Clemency tomorrow, June 24th, and shall retrieve what is mine by divine right. In this new body, purified of my soul and of my parents' carnal sin, death will no longer hold any mystery for me. The head of Baphomet has finally revealed all of its secrets. Victory! I would shout this divine miracle from the rooftops if I did not fear the unbelievers and their stake. I am in a new, younger, stronger body, and it is God's will. How else can I explain Adeline's appearance at my bedside? Blessed and cursed. God gave me a new body, but Adeline, my angel, who took care of this new body, is forbidden to me. It would seem she is the daughter of that idiot, Pierre. That's to say, my own daughter at present. I am weary of this existence. What is the point of living for centuries if I can never again glimpse the smile of my beloved Adeline? Ah, Adeline, you who are forbidden to me, will I ever see your sweet face again? I would gladly exchange these solitary centuries to see your face, your eyes, once more. She has returned. She is once more of this world, and so close to me. She visited Kaufner today. It really was her. That excellent doctor of the mind confirmed it. It is her, and this time she will be mine for the rest of my life.
Well, Miss Blake, it would seem you did not tell me everything. Right, that's all I needed. Blake's been abducted and the kidnapper takes himself for a Dialpe. And naturally he wants the head in exchange. As if I knew where it was.
Wait. What? Okay, so Sophia was working with Kaufner to steal the head from the Alpen. And she was Faye because the black dye in the sink pretty much spells that out. So who was the woman who was killed? Did Mac, Helen, and Mrs. Loiseau just hallucinate her? I'm so confused. And what happened to the head? I mean, if she was the thief, why were we hired? I'm lost. And now she's been kidnapped. Let's go finish our exploration of the catacombs. Here we recreate the purple gas, and here we get another vision. So the open is out there? Girl. Back to the Alembic, we find Berenice crying and... Oh my god, Holo, damn. Wait, how was he mixed up in all of this? We try to comfort Berenice, and she tells us about the most recent job she had made for Hulot, a grotesque mask. We show her the sketch of the head, and she confirms that that's the thing she made a copy of. So the con artists were trying to con each other, and I'm just lost. She also tells us that Hulot used to stare for hours at one of the paintings in the bistro, as if it held some sort of secret. We go check it out with this candle, and ooh, the lemon juice puzzle 2.0. This would be a cool puzzle. You find shapes in the painting, take note of them, and then put them together in the notebook. The problem is how damn unresponsive it is. Like, okay, ignoring the problem that the screen is comically small, with some of the things I discovered I couldn't even see them appearing. Some of them were accidental. And some of them, Max just refused to acknowledge them. I would almost burn a painting to a crisp and they still wouldn't take note of the shape that clearly just appeared. Solving this puzzle alone took me half an hour. Not half an hour of, running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out what to do. Half an hour, 30 minutes of slowly going up and down and across and around with this candle over this painting. But I did it, and what was revealed to us was a gateway with the word Molitor. And here we unlock this abandoned subway station, and Postmortem really doesn't like me looking around here. It's the most interesting location of the game, but the game is holding me at knife point, like, if you turn another inch to the left, I swear. Well, okay, onwards we march. We obviously need to use the flashlight, and I don't think you're ready for this. If you've ever been a fan of a Let's Player, you've probably heard them complain about the flashlight. It's usually because it illuminates like this tiny circle and nothing else. But fellas, I found it. I found the worst flashlight in all of video game history. Behold! I honestly can't recall ever seeing a flashlight that not only illuminates jack shit, actively prevents you from seeing. Unbelievable. It's funny how vividly I can picture the devs getting more and more annoyed with their 3D engine. Like, at first thinking that whatever they did was a great idea, but then they slowly realized that it's a lesson on how not to do things. If you're thinking, wow, Liv, you sound a little bit vague. I don't know anything about making video games. I don't know anything about 3D models. One time I tried making a house on Blender following a tutorial, and I failed. I'm just following a hunch here, and my heart is telling me that the blurry universe we're submerged in is to blame for, like, all the graphical problems. Anyways, down here there's a storage where we find the head of Baphomet and the replica. Now we head over to the police station and present our TED talk on why Helloan is innocent, and LeBron's like, okay McPherson, we'll see about that. And then we finally go save Sophia.
Mr. McPherson, did you know that in Tarot, the hanged man is not put to death, but confronted by his destiny instead? Arriving at his journey's end, he is able to see his life again from a new angle. Sometimes, a man thinks of certain events again and discovers that he was tricked, betrayed.
McPherson! Help me, Gustav! Don't let him! He's insane!
This painful blow, this moment when our convictions, our beliefs, our passions are shattered. When you discover your life has been nothing but lies, trickery.
McPherson! Help me down! He'll kill me! He'll kill you! Like he killed all the others! He killed them all! That Kaufner, he killed them!
Judged! All guilty of having tricked me, betrayed me, stolen from me. Just as you did Blake. And just as she tricked and betrayed you too, Mr. Macpherson. The Baphomet is mine. It has been mine for centuries. It is my immortality. Give me back the head, Macpherson, or she will be sentenced before the tribunal of God.
Who, Dialpin, will judge you for these crimes you have committed? God or the devil?
I am the sole judge of my actions.
This story shall end at the very moment you lay your hands on your treasure. I have never represented justice. I have merely tried to do my job, both for her and for you, albeit against my will. Take back the head of Baphomet, since you are the one who wants it. Justice will be done. One day, you will pay for it. Right. You have the head now. Let her go.
Blundering idiot! Did you really think I would let you leave with my secret?
That was close.
Yes. I owe you one.
Never mind that. If it was not for you, I would still be rotting away in jail.
Come on. I'll buy you a drink at the Alambe.
It's not like me to turn down such an offer. And there's that cute girl that works there.
Be careful. People are not always what they seem.
Hey! Don't forget me!
No. You'll get my bill within the next few days. And the police should be turning up any moment.
Is Kaufner right? Was he really Dialpin?
What difference would it make? He's dead now. He might have been immortal. He's not any longer.
What some people will do for power.
Yes. There are people who would do anything for power and money. But not us.
Okay, so somehow Dialpin played the reversal card on Dr. Kaufner and possessed his body. And I was kinda expecting them to explain, the 57 people who were trying to steal the head, to at least explain the murder which started all of this. No? Okay, that's the end, everybody. So, as you could witness from my expose, Post-mortem does very little right. The graphics, the puzzles, the way the story is told, it just flopped. Oh god, listen to this. I was taking a look at the Wikipedia page to see if I could get some answers, and listen. To ensure the game had variety and no linear storyline, Microids used a software called Natural Dialogue Engine. Girl, it's okay to try new things, but did no one playtest the results of the engine to say, hey, this is not working? Blah blah blah, according to Microids, the game was a commercial success, good for them. Post-mortem has arguably the most important thing. Likeable, charismatic characters. But when you have that and don't have anything else, it's rough. I honestly hate to say it, but I don't recommend you get this even if you love old point and click like yours truly. Go unearth something from abandonware and just leave post-mortem. There's a joke with corpses here, but this game left me so exhausted that I can't find it. Anyways. did the devs get bought out by a larger company? What is this jump in quality? Still Life was released in 2005. Even though technology moves at a frantic pace, especially at the time, 3 years feels like a really short time for such an upgrade. So here's our main character, Agent Victoria McPherson. So she's related to Mac somehow. Also they changed the spelling of the name for some reason. It's near Christmas and everything's quiet, except for the crime world. Victoria has been tailing a serial killer for a while now, and they've just found the body of his 5th victim. Just outside of the scene of the crime, we find Miller, a cop who doesn't have the stomach for bodies. What is he even doing here? Why is he working with the tailing the serial killer team? So from what I've gathered, the voice acting is okay, pretty good, for the most part. If a line's too long, Victoria starts sounding really weird, but hey, fine. As you can see, the devs adopted the standard fixed camera for each environment, but I regret to inform you, they still wanted to do their own thing with the inventory. It's not as nightmare-inducing as scrolling through my 57 possessions in post-mortem, but it's not the best either. Here we have to collect evidence, so we have our collecting evidence kit with us. In pretty much any other game, you open the menu, select use, and then you can click on the thing you want to use the other thing on. In Still Life, you have to be within a certain range of the interactable thing, which then will make this icon appear on the corner. Then you can open the inventory and use the thing. Okay, yeah, this isn't the best, but also not the worst. You probably think I'm making a big deal out of nothing. Okay, but then sometimes you have to click on the interactable to actually manage to be within action range, which always prompts a comment from Victoria. Which, hey, is an improvement. I did say that aspect was sorely missed in Postmortem. However, what is also sorely missed is the option to skip dialogues. Yeah, misclick something, have to hear all the dialogue lines again, have to line yourself up to use the Q-tip on the bloodstain. Gonna have to hear what our protagonist has to say about it again. By the way, since we're already here, dialogue. Still Life kinda does the same annoying thing where you have to click to continue a conversation that could very well continue on its own. But here it's not all bad. Conversations have chunks that will go on their own, and then you have to click for the next chunk. This is actually nice if you have someone who's always interrupting you while you play. This way you won't miss like half an hour of lore dump because you're stuck in an unstoppable dialogue and that person's bugging you. So yeah, kind of a nice asset if you have an annoying roommate or something, and if you don't, it's just a minor inconvenience. Oh, by the way, one more thing. Double-clicking to go to the next area doesn't teleport you there instantly. It just makes Victoria kinda run. I'm not sure this slim-wristed jog is making things any faster though. This gets surprisingly annoying as the game goes on, but back to the story. With the aid of black light and luminol, we uncover messages that the killer wrote with blood, then scrubbed off the wall. For some reason. Sanctuary and Disturbed. Okay. We then have Clarice, the coroner, to take pictures of the body. Our guy's MO is that he beats his victims, then drowns them. But this one has several stab wounds and has been eviscerated as well. Things are escalating, so we better catch him soon. There's nothing else we can do for now, so let's go to the office.
Let's go, Miller.
Okay, where to?
The office. What the?
I gotcha!
Do you like them?
Oh, sorry. Hey, anybody hurt? We're okay!
Is this plausible? How do things get to this point? Anyways, we find a boarded up emergency exit here, and seriously, what is going on with this place? I don't think it's physically possible for a place in the middle of a big city to be this banged up. So we meddle with the crime scene by grabbing this iron thing to pry the boards out.
It looks like I'm gonna have to do this the hard way.
Back to the HQ, Miller's helping by writing the report for us, but he needs us to drop the pictures we took in the evidence shoot and the preliminary analysis from Clarice, so we head over to the underground morgue. But someone changed the password. Amazing. Back up, we grab our keycard, which has the memo vodka attached to it. On our desk, we also find a Christmas gift from our dad and the files on the other victims of our killer. These pictures are surprisingly gruesome and eerie. It really caught me off guard. Back down again, we type out vodka on the keypad, getting the correct code and gaining access to the morgue. Well, sort of. When a game does this type the word to get a code puzzle, it's never what you'd actually have to type on those old keypads. In the puzzles, you only type each number once. When to actually type vodka, for example, you would have to go 888-666-3552. So I actually typed out TNDJA, but I digress. In the morgue, the coroner tells us that the victim was completely drunk and was roofied, so at least she was unconscious throughout most of her murder. She also found a partial DNA that doesn't belong to the victim, but we'll have to wait to see if that yields any results. After handing everything over to Miller, we head to our dad's home to spend some almost Christmas time with him.
Hi, Dad!
Hi, Pumpkin.
Are you sure about this gift?
Yeah, gimme, gimme, gimme.
Suit yourself, here you are.
Thanks, sweetheart. You know me, I love these things. Now yours.
My god, what an ugly necklace. It almost unlocks some long forgotten memories of those trashy Disney princess games. You know what I'm talking about? Anyways.
Where did you get this? I thought we lost it.
Oh, okay, it's got sentimental value. Yeah, at least it has that going for it. Talking to our dad, we find out that Gus McPherson was our grandfather, and our dad found the necklace inside a trunk full of his stuff. Victoria mentions how he never told the story of how he met our grandmother, and our dad theorizes that it's probably because he lost someone very dear to him somewhere along the way. He also asks us to bake cookies following a family recipe, so... cooking puzzle on the horizon. We go upstairs and... oh my god! It's the head of Baphomet! I literally gasped out loud when I saw it. This is such a cool Easter egg for people who played Mortem. Anyways, we now head to our room and to the attic, and as someone whose room also serves as storage for the house, I feel immense solidarity towards Vic. Anyways, let's see what... And Dad doesn't want to give us a hint on how to open it. Oh, wait! Cards! The ugly necklace Dad gave us! So I turn the gears until the trunk passcode reads diamond, diamond, heart, diamond, diamond, and now it's open.
Prague, 1929. 2 years had passed since the strange case in Paris. I figured I'd best leave town and come here. Quieter, or so I thought. The case in Paris had stirred my passion for PI work again. I had to let go of my dream of being an artist. It wasn't bringing in as much dough as being a private dick. In all, there were 5 dead and 2 unaccounted for. So far, all the victims were prostitutes. I didn't know if I would take the case. To my surprise, this cop Skalnik had no beef about me snooping around his crime scene. It's very nice of you to let me have a peek. I'm Gustav McPherson. I'm a...
Yes, a private detective. I'm familiar with your work, Mr. McPherson.
Oh my god, we get to play as Mac too? 2 mysteries for the price of 1? So here we are in 1920s Prague, where up until now 5 prostitutes have been found dead, their throats slit, cuts on their arms suggestive of a struggle, and eviscerated. What immediately stands out is that there's not a lot of blood at the scene, suggesting that the victim was killed somewhere else, then transported here. But if that's the case, how to explain the lack of witnesses? Something to keep in mind over the course of our investigation. Also, this is Inspector Skalnik, local useless cop. And this is Stasek, local not so useless cop. From him, we find out that the murders have started about 3 weeks ago, so wow, that's a lot. Walking over to the right area, we meet Ida, our beloved. She used to dance at a club until she got involved with us and we started supporting her. She's the one who asked us to help her friends, or as she calls it, hired us.
When do you want to settle this, now or later?
No, I don't want money, Ida.
Nonsense, you will accept our money. How much do you charge?
Okay, listen. We'll settle this after the case, alright?
Do you promise? Because we'll feel insulted if you don't accept our money.
What was I supposed to do? Take money off these women? That's the last thing I wanted to do. Yes, I promise. I will charge you at the end of the case. Yeah, right.
We then ask Milena a few questions about the case. She tells us that the newest victim, Frantiska, was her childhood friend. They had been close ever since their time at the orphanage. Neither Frantiska nor her work the streets though. They have a few regular clients that they trust, so no weird clients to blame here. Apolina does work the streets, so maybe she has some info about suspicious characters. There's also Aneska, Apolina's good friend who has been missing for some time. They aren't super worried since she left the city every now and again, but are definitely on high alert.
Ida's an angel on Earth. She's the sweetest person I've ever met. I truly believe she doesn't have an angry bone in her body, even with the difficult childhood she had. A stepfather who molested her on a regular basis. Ida is always positive, and she's always willing to help the people who surround her. That's why she hired me to try and help. She has an undying optimism about life in general, and I love her for it. Hey.
How is she?
She's okay, I guess, under the circumstances.
I'll go talk to her after.
Tell me, where can I find Emil Corona?
Who's he?
He's the coroner working the case. I need to ask him a few questions. Skalnik said he worked in an old chapel. Do you know where it is?
Yes, I'll mark it on a map.
I don't need a map. Just tell me where it is.
What is it with men and directions? Take this map, it'll help you. I marked the location of the old chapel. It's not far from here.
Okay, thanks, sweetheart. How have you been? I mean, are you feeling better?
Yes, a little. It's not as bad as when you left for your case.
Did you go see the doctor?
No.
Ida, go see him. It might be serious. I'm no doctor, but throwing up every day is not normal. Go see him.
Okay, I'll go see him. I don't throw up every day, you know. You always exaggerate.
Yes, okay. But go see him as soon as possible. Okay. I have to see this Corona. I want you to stay off the streets as much as possible. Never walk around alone.
Yes, I know you've told me 100 times. I am careful.
Okay, I'll ease up on you. You be careful.
I will. Now go.
On our way to the old chapel, we come across Kubina, a local pimp, telling his grunt to give us a lesson if he ever sees us, and lamenting that the grunt's brother was arrested. The guy is angry at us because we took Ida away from him, and I guess he's scared we're pimp competition. But hey, there's a killer on the loose, we can deal with this beef later. By the way, I love how the city looks. The modern city looks pretty good, nothing wrong with it, but Roaring 20s Prague is everything is so full of personality. I just love how the city looks, like I love it a lot. We now go talk to the coroner, Mr. Emil Corona. He's kinda deaf because of some exploding shells in the Great War, and he confirms that the cause of death of all 5 victims has been the slit throats, and mentions that the previous victim had been found in the place she was killed, in the park. So that helped to confirm some suspicions about the killer's MO. We ask about his file on the case, but he has put it in his safe, and forgot the combination. Oh, it's written down here. Of course, it couldn't be that easy. After walking up and down searching for clues, I noticed that the clock here uses the same type of symbols as the safe, but it only has the numbers 12, 3, 6, and 9. So I just kind of followed my heart. Some of the symbols kinda resembled their numeristic counterparts, and with others the number of traces is a tell. So we grabbed the file and the picture of the crime scene and...
Stay away from women! Sorry, Mac. I like women too much!
I woke up with a splitting headache. It wasn't the first time my smart-ass mouth got me in trouble.
After that brief inconvenience, we head over to the park. We talk to Apollina, and she's like, I don't care that people around me are being brutally killed. More business for me. I have all the protection I need from Roman. Piss off. Isn't Roman the one in jail? Anyways. In the park, we can compare the picture of the scene of the crime with what it looks like today, and there's something different about the base of the fount here, like something has been removed from there. We take a closer look and there's an inscription here. The horror wasn't worthy of my devotion, so I proposed to the angel. Taking a look at the angel's hands, we get a ring, but the scroll steals it from us. We run after it, ending up in this abandoned neighborhood.
Oh my, has my friend here stolen this from you?
He has, yes.
I cannot help but be embarrassed. You see, I taught him to retrieve shiny objects for me, and he does so remarkably well, don't you think?
Yes, he does.
Being a coachman in an industrialized world is not quite what it used to be.
Who are you?
On good days, as I mentioned earlier, I work as a coachman for the odd tourist or for the prostitutes who want to make their way through the city at a bargain price. On not so good days, my friend, whom you've already met, becomes a thief to help me make ends meet. On bad days, I'm merely reduced to being a homeless bum.
Okay, suspicious looking guy. He's probably just a red herring despite the whole coachman thing being suspicious considering the lack of witnesses. He mentions Vladana, a girl he used to drive every once in a while, who he hasn't seen in a long time. We also bring up the lack of witnesses, and he's like, oh my god, there's only one way to make your way around the city without being seen: the sewers. Okay, yes, true, we'll keep that in mind, but don't think I haven't noticed you trying to deflect suspicion from you, sir. He also gives us the ring back, and there's no inscription or anything, so no clue from it for now.
Gus?
Ida, what are you doing here?
I found something that might help you.
Weren't you supposed to see the doctor? Ida, please don't do this.
Do what?
Help.
Why can't I help you?
Because it's dangerous. Don't you know there's a seriously deranged man roaming the streets preying on women?
Oh, I can handle myself.
I don't doubt that for a second, but I'd like to know that you're somewhere safe so I can concentrate on the case and not worry about you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what have you found out?
Oh, it's really good. I was asking a few questions of some of the women. Anyway, one of them admitted that she'd heard that one of the victims survived an attack and was hiding in the scrapyard.
Ooh, that sure is a nice lead. Checking out the place where Ida came from, we get a vision, but then there's nothing else. So, turns out that the grunt is blocking the entrance to the junkyard. So, I guess it's time to straighten things out with Kubina. We offer an exchange of favors. We get Roman out of jail, and he lets us talk to Vladana, the girl hiding away in the junkyard. At the police station, we talk to Stasek, our cop friend again, and he asks us for a favor to free Roman. Okay, here we go. He went to see Apollina for you-know-what, and she stole his medal, which he's really attached to, and now his wife is getting suspicious. So, we get the medal back, he frees Roman. So, we go talk to Apollina. And luckily, this doesn't turn into a domino effect of fetch quests, since Apollina relies on Roman's protection. So we easily get the medal. Stasek didn't pay, by the way, that's what happened. He didn't pay, Roman was like, hey, what in tarnation? Punched the cop, and Apollina stole the medal, which I think was very fair, but hey, we're doing this for the greater good. After all that, we can finally go talk to Vladana.
Gustav, wait! I want to show you something. Stand here and don't cross this line here. Oh no, not this again. He always does this with the new guys. So don't move, okay?
What's going on? Hey guys, I just want to talk to the girl.
He only likes raw meat. I gotcha!
Well, damn. Guess we're stuck here for now. Over here we find these chain cutters, and here there's a lever puzzle to turn the power on. At first I thought you could only move the lever to these rest places, and I was like, this puzzle is impossible. But then I realized that you can leave them in between like this, so in the end it's easier than most lever puzzles like this. So now we line these crates up to make a path towards the chain together ones, cut the chains, and then make a path to the abandoned train.
Who's there?
I'm Gus McPherson, PI. You must be Vladana.
Yeah, hello?
Hi, sweetie. Am I bothering you?
Not at all. I was just reading something and I guess I really got into it.
Do you want me to call you back?
Really, it's okay. What's up? You don't sound too good.
I called her.
Oh, Samantha?
Yes. I need to talk.
I'll be right there. Where can I pick you up?
At work. Just come down to the morgue. I still have a little work to do before we go.
Okay, you take care. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Oh, back to Vic? Okay then. Wait. What? Hello? We run after him, but of course he escapes. One pump. Back to the morgue. Claire says that he left a picture of a young woman inside her, with Next written on the back. Also, our boss wants to scream at us upstairs. So...
Hello?
Hi, honey.
Oh, hi, Richard.
You left the gallery in a rush and you never called back, so I got a little worried. Is everything okay?
Oh, yes, I'm fine. I'm sorry about that. It's just we found another victim and some really weird stuff is going on.
Oh, God. How are you holding up?
I'm very tired. And I'm in dire need of unwinding, like we did 2 nights ago.
True, that was very relaxing. I have an idea. Come down here and I can show you the new exhibit, and after we can go unwind.
Very tempting, but I have to decline.
Aw, why?
Well, I have to go get yelled at by my boss. Anyways, why are you so excited about this exhibit? I've never seen you so into your work.
Oh, it's because I sort of discovered this artist. Actually, it wasn't just me. Some people from the University of Chicago's Fine Arts Department helped a little. We discovered him at an auction. He's from LA, but originally from Chicago. His name is Mark Ackerman. The department and I purchased most of his pieces, but we're still looking for some. Anyway, we got enough to make an exhibit.
Richard, I'm sorry. I really have to go.
Oh, sorry. You know how I get started.
Yes, I do. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, honey. You be careful now.
I will. Bye.
Bye.
Dude, I don't know why, but this boyfriend feels so forced. Like, Vic has big lesbian energy, I guess. Anyways, we grab coffee for our boss, and he tells us that we're too involved with this case. We need a break. Oh my god, no. Did you like my impression of someone who's extremely worried about not knowing the resolution of the mystery? Like, we know that we're gonna be back on the case in an hour, tops. It's like making movies about Pompeii. Everyone knows how it's gonna end. What's the point even? Case in point, as soon as we leave the boss's office, Miller asks, "What happened?" And Vic's like, "I'm on probation." And immediately after, Miller goes, "I got a lead." And Vic's like, "Okay, gonna check it out." I mean, I guess probation isn't in our vocabulary. So what Miller found out is that there is a person connected to both the 4th and 5th victims, a guy called Vaclav Kolar. He had been interviewed since he had been close with the 4th victim, her tutor. And now Claire has found a picture in the 5th victim, Cynthia Wood's purse. Her, a girl, and Vaclav. So off we go to talk to him. He doesn't recognize her by name, but we show him the picture and he says that yeah, he had seen her at the party where the picture was taken, his neighbor's party, who had been close friends with Cynthia. He also tells us that he's studying criminology and his thesis is on the Perlovka Ripper, a serial killer from 1920s Prague.
Well, you don't say.
We ask for a copy of his thesis, so he leaves the room to go get it, and that's the perfect opportunity to grab a beer bottle to lift his fingerprints. Also in his thesis, he's trying to prove that the 1929 Perlovka Ripper is the same killer from the unsolved 1931 Chicago murders. Hey, spoilers, man! Now we know that Mac won't be able to catch him. Back to the office, we lift the fingerprints with the fingerprinting equipment and give both the bottle and the lifted prints to Claire for analysis. Now, since we don't have any other pressing matters, back to Dad's house. And he asks us to make cookies. Fine. Dude, what? No, yeah, it's walkthrough time. I guess a decent cook would be able to guess what generosity in the context of half a cup and gingerbread man is, but I am not a decent cook. Like, I need constant supervision in the kitchen or else things blow up. So I make the cookies following a recipe written by a normal person, and now it's back to reading up on Mac's case. When we last saw him, he was just about to speak to Vladana, the victim who managed to escape. She gives us a sketch of what the killer looks like and details the assault, mentioning that he had a silver mask with motifs and that she was coming back from Mark's place. This is what she says when we further inquire about Mark.
You mentioned earlier that you left Mark's place the night you were attacked. Who's Mark?
Mark is a local artist. Most of the girls know him. I think he's painted all of us at least once.
Was Mark acting strange that night, or was it business as usual?
Everything was fine until Inspector Skalnick showed up.
Inspector Skalnick talked to Mark. What did they talk about?
I didn't really pay attention to what they were saying, but they were arguing about something. When Skalnick left, Mark told me to get dressed and leave. He told me he wasn't feeling well enough to continue.
Was he angry?
He was, but he made a good effort not to show it. So I left quietly without saying a word besides good night.
In general, Mark was always nice.
Yes, always cordial, very polite and well-behaved. He would give us double what we charge a client for the time we spent posing. It was a lot better work, let me tell you. I only posed for him once, and I wish I could do it again.
Okay, thank you so much for the info, Vladana. It seems like someone got the dog under control in the meantime, so we can safely leave now and head towards Mark's studio.
Hello?
Yes?
I'm Gus McPherson. I'm a private detective hired to help out with the local murders.
Really? A genuine private dick, and I can tell by your accent you're American, too. This adds so much to the authenticity of the stereotype. The name is Mark Ackerman. Pleased to meet you.
Likewise. Are you British?
No, I'm a Yank, just like you are. The accent is due to living in England throughout most of my childhood. You see, Daddy is an ambassador. I sort of picked it up along the way. I hardly notice it anymore.
Mark? Qui est-ce?
Stay in your position, Apollina, please.
This was a while back, but do you remember when Inspector Skalnick came here to talk to you? Actually, according to rumor, you had an argument with him. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And do you mind telling me what it was about?
Not at all. He accused me of being, as you put it so eloquently earlier, the local problem.
He accused you of being the killer.
Yes, can you believe the gall? I mean, really, me, a killer. It's totally preposterous.
Did he elaborate on his theory?
Not really. He only confronted me. He didn't present any proof or real evidence to support his allegations. I'm afraid you'll have to ask him about his little hypothesis.
Well, I guess let's go hear Inspector Skalnick's side of the story now. Yes, I considered him a suspect, blah 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 blah. Okay, amazing, fabulous, so helpful.
Fine. Can you at least lend me the files on the other victims?
No, McPherson.
Why not? I just want to consult them. Hey, I thought we were working to...
No, we are not. I work for the mayor, not the whores.
Well, now, it seems we work for the same kind of people, except my clients have character and honesty.
I think I speak for all of us when I say that I love Gustav McPherson. I haven't mentioned this aspect of the story yet, and now is the moment to do so. Mac invented feminism. He's a man in the 1920s. We can see in post-mortem that he can have a completely cordial and professional relationship with a beautiful and sensual woman, no weird comments or anything. Also in post-mortem, his relationship with Berenice. They're very casual, more like friends with benefits really, and still he respects Baby 100%, talks and sees her as an equal, doesn't forget for a second that she's not only a beautiful woman, but also a talented sculptress and forger. And now in still life, he sees and treats prostitutes who have been a marginalized and stigmatized group since like the dawn of time, the same way, as equals. He's disappointed but not surprised, and with an edge of anger at the way they're treated and the position they're put in by default. And the cherry on top of the respectful king, inventor of feminism cake, he's actually in love and planning on building a life together with Ida, a former dancer with a past that would have made her dirty in the eyes of pretty much everyone at the time. And it doesn't feel forced. Believe me, I've consumed media where it feels like a person from modern times was just dumped in a medieval setting, and Gus just feels so natural. It's just very believable that a level-headed guy, over the course of his brilliant career as a detective, realized a few truths about the world that his peers are just unwilling to see. Guy's got style, character, intelligence, talent, and although I can't remember any flaws of his, he doesn't feel like a Mary Sue either. What's not to love about Gustav McPherson? By the way, while writing this, I came up with another theory for what was going on in postmortem. Maybe Helois getting the blame was all a setup, because he was hired by Dale Penn, but at the time, Dale Penn had already been dead for a few days, I guess, and had possessed Kaufner's body. So Sophia and Kaufner Del Penn needed a scapegoat for the murders that would take place to get rid of her husband. So they hired Helois under false pretenses so he would be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It makes sense, but the game never alludes to that. So, I don't know. Still no idea about the murder. Okay, tangent over, back to the story. We need those files, so we are gonna get those files whether Skalnik likes it or not.
Is that his wife? I think she fell off the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down.
In the files, we get two pictures of a victim found near the bridge and another in the burned neighborhood, but only one ring. In the report, it says that the police left the ring with a jeweler for an inspection or something and the guy lost it. Right. In any case, let's keep an eye out for a jeweler. We go back to the burned neighborhood where Mac had the vision and note that the water basin was empty on the day of the murder. We empty it and there's this vague carving. We now go over to the bridge and ooh, another vision! Why is Mac having so many visions in this game? In postmortem he had 3? He only gets these vague flashes in half of them anyways, so I think I prefer his more sporadic visions, but that actually hold an important clue or something. Anyways.
Yes, I'm fine. Didn't we talk about you staying at home safely, behind a bolted door?
Yes, we did, but we also talked about me going to see the doctor.
Ah, yes, I remember that. So what did the doc say? Did he find the problem?
Well, yes, he did.
So what's wrong?
Can I ask you a very serious question?
Okay, now I'm worried. What is it?
How serious are we?
How serious? Well, why do you ask?
Just answer the question.
I'm sorry, Ida, but where is this going?
Do you love me?
Yes, of course I love you. Actually, love is too small a word. I lure you, I lurve you, I lobe you.
I'm pregnant.
Really?
Yes, really. That's why I've been sick for the last couple of weeks.
I see.
What do you want to do?
Well, there's only one thing we can do.
Which is?
Let's get married.
Really?
Let's do it in New York. I have some friends and family that can help us get started.
Oh, Gus, you're wonderful.
Oh, I'm so happy for them. But also it's kind of a wonder that that possibility didn't even cross Mac's mind. Well, back to the murders. Comparing the picture to what we're seeing today, Mac notices that the public benches were changed. Okay, if you say so. These pictures are just like sometimes impossible. You just click and ooh, the benches. Okay. There's only one place where old public benches go, and that's the junkyard. Stuck on it, we find another ring, but no carvings this time. After aimlessly wandering for a while, we ask Milena if she saw anything unusual during the burnt neighborhood case, since she was the one who found the body. She says that the only thing she noticed was that Inspector Skolnick threw something in the sewers, something shiny. Okay, I'm in hungry pockets mode. Give me that ring. By the way, I found a bug. It's not a huge deal unless it's been a while since you saved, since the game doesn't autosave, in which case it's a huge deal. I tried talking to Peter, but that made him repeat a dialogue we had already had, except Mac didn't respond. Turns out that the feature of not being able to skip dialogue turns into something much worse than it was originally, because now we are stuck here. Luckily, I had saved just a moment before, so it wasn't a problem. Bug report for the 20-year-old game over, back to the sewers. Mac notes that the lock to the underground passages is brand new. As we're leaving...
Gustav!
Yes?
I'm really worried for Apollina.
Don't worry. She's with Mark, the painter.
I know, but she should have been back by now. It never takes that long to model.
You've modeled for him before?
Yes, I did, and I didn't like it very much.
Why?
Well, I don't like him too much.
Was he mean to you?
No, actually, quite the contrary. He was always nice. Too nice. It just gives me the creeps. Anyway, can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Can you just go and look at Mark's studio?
Okay, I'll have a look. And if Apollina's there, I say...
That Milena wants to talk to you.
I'll do as you wish.
Thank you.
We head over to Mark's studio, but there's no one home.
I think I'll let myself in.
My heart stopped for a second, but it seems like my criticism of the post-mortem lockpicking system was heard, because we actually get a tutorial here. And the puzzle is much better than playing dancing chairs with those 5 tools. Here we have to lift the thingies in a certain order, and some of them lock some others in place. These ones lock all of the same color ones in place, and some of them actually unlock other locks. After solving it, we go inside where we can look at the paintings, and there's a book on the occult, blood on the couch, and a letter.
Mr. Ackerman, your indiscretions are becoming too expensive to cover up. Your father is resigning as ambassador. You will be returning to America with him shortly. Get your affairs in order. Bell, U.S. Embassy.
Come on, U.S. Embassy. He's just a serial killer leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for anyone who bothers to investigate. So now we obviously go talk to the inspector about it, right?
Well, Inspector, are you satisfied with your last payment?
Yes, it's very adequate.
The ambassador wishes you good luck in finding the murder. I think that concludes our agreement. Farewell, Inspector.
My thanks to the ambassador. And as far as our murderer is concerned, well, let's just say I have the perfect man to take the fall.
Why, that son of a bitch.
God! Wow, I never imagined this. I mean, this isn't the image I had of your room.
Miller, what the hell are you doing here?
I imagined something more along the lines of Hellraiser.
Christ, Miller.
Sorry, I'm in shock here. I came because the prints on the bottle and the partials match at a 99% probability. Kolar seems to be our best bet.
Really?
Yes, and I thought you'd want to pick him up.
Okay, I'll meet you over there. Wait for me before taking action.
Of course I will.
Okay, our business with Skolnick can't wait. People who are still alive right now need us. By the way, you know what is more outrageous than corruption? Your dad eating all the cookies you made.
Jeez, Dad, you could have let me have at least one.
By the way, too, Victoria lives here. Like, it's not just Dad's house. She lives here. This is her room. Like, in present tense. I have no words, so let's just go get Vaclav. He's not here. We break into his apartment. His room looks exactly like you imagined. As we're leaving...
What's going on?
Police business, miss.
Ouch. Hello.
You must be Mia, right?
Yes, and you seem to have me at a disadvantage.
I'm Agent McPherson, and this is Detective Miller. You wouldn't happen to know where Vaclav might be?
Actually, yes I do. I saw him at work. He was getting a massage or taking a hot bath, whichever.
Where do you work?
Where do you work?
Here's my card. The address is on the back.
Can you check it out? I'll meet you over there.
Sure. Better than being ignored.
Do you mind if I ask what you do there?
Not at all. Actually, I could show you if you'd like, because I can see all that tension in your shoulders and neck. My apartment is just a few steps away.
Thanks for the offer, but I have to decline. I really need to talk to your friend Vaclav.
Okay, hear me out. Remember a while ago when I said that Vic simply has lesbian energy, so it's weird that she's dating Richard? I now think that her character was perfectly constructed, actually. Because, like, hear me out. Vic and Richard are each other's unintentional beards. They weren't specifically looking for beards, however they're like the person you date before you realize, actually, you know? And Mia picked up on it, because like, in case you didn't know, queer people have a secret antenna that detects other queer people even if they themselves don't know it yet. Trust my 23-year-old wisdom here. Queer people don't just heavily and insistently flirt with straight people like what we just saw here. Mia's Queerinator 3000 just went off, I'm telling you. Anyways, onto her workplace. Vic has a hunch on what the place is, so she pretends to work there, but the security guy tells us that we need the ID. So back to Mia to somehow convince her to give us her work of questionable legality ID, when she knows that we're a cop. Yeah. She has to go downstairs for a while though, so it's time for us to snoop around her apartment.
Interesting, she has a $5,000 television, but she has a dial phone.
Victoria, don't be dense. It's 2004, you know damn well what a vintage phone is. In Mia's room, we see an open photo book, and Vic notes that there's a picture of Mia with a girl whose picture was left inside Cynthia, the next one. We ask her about the girl, and she mentions that she was supposed to meet up with her at her studio today, a studio which Richard conveniently owns. So we both there, frantically asking Richard to let us into the studio, but...
Shit.
My God! No!
Mia! Wait! Shit! I have to stay here to secure the scene. Call the police and go find Mia.
Okay.
On top of the victim, a picture of Mia. We have to be quick. From the victim's purse, we grab her work ID and a metal rose. Our team soon arrives and our boss tells us that Miller has brought Vaclav in for questioning. Our job here is done. At the office, we interrogate Vaclav and he ends up admitting that he hired Cynthia and that there's an exclusive club in the best place, only for the rich and powerful. But at precisely that moment, Browning comes in like, "You're free to go, Kolar." Wow, thanks a lot, boss. Have you ever done anything useful ever? Well, anyways, we know more than enough to infiltrate the Red Lantern. We head home and grab a picture of us, then back at the office we DIY a Red Lantern work ID. And now we're in! Perfect! In here there's a door with buttons from 1 to 6 and this inscription. In my memoirs, you shall find the instrument of my suffering, with which we celebrate our vows. Keeping that in mind, we explore the parts of the bathhouse that are accessible to us. There are several paintings hanging, each with different numbers. And then there's also this dagger. After trying out different combinations of different interpretations of what each line of the clue refers to, grabbing some silver objects and realizing that this is a 1 and 5 and not a 4, we're in. And there's something else we need to do here.
It says, "I am Lady Temptation. Give me what I desire most."
Okay, we have 4, actually 3.5 silver objects for the 4 beautiful ladies here. So we hop over to Mia's place to grab the other half of the apple. Here there's also a note that's a clue to the order in which we have to give these statues the objects. Secrets, temptation, blood, and pain. And so, back at the Red Lantern, we follow that order and open this secret staircase. Downstairs, there's a ledger with the names of the clients, so we have to find a way to get it. In the room to the left, there's half of a key and a tile of some kind. And in the room to the right, there's a slide puzzle. Long time no see. Honestly, I have solved so many slide puzzles in my life that I don't even need to open the wiki anymore. This one is kinda hard because it's hard to tell which tile is supposed to go where, which is a key aspect of solving these quickly, but hey, I managed in the end and got the other half of the key. Back to the left, we insert the key in this fireplace hole, and now we got the ledger.
Mark Ackerman?
Mark Ackerman! It's Ackerman!
So I was to take the fall for this, huh? You little son of a bitch. So you covered his tracks for money, huh? You know how many died for your greed, you bastard? Huh? Do you? I'll make sure you go down. Oh yeah, you have the right to a phone call. You little smartass punk!
Mac is everything. As we're leaving the police station, our friend tells us that a new body has been found, and so we ask him to give us a head start and not inform Skalnik just yet. Thanks, friend. The new victim is Apollina, but while we're inspecting the body, the inspector shows up and tries to shoot us. We then hide in this place. While we wait for things to calm down above, we drain the pool to see what we can find in the bottom of it. There's yet another entrance to the sewers, and here we navigate this maze, finding a 6th ring and then getting to this passage in the middle. Yeah, it does make your hand hurt after a while to have to hold left click to make Gus walk around, but whatever. We then reach this door where we have to put the rings in the right place and rotation and then slide everything to transport this key to the top. Yeah, walkthrough. I'm sorry, towards the end of a game I'm too involved with the story to really put my brain into this complicated puzzle. Plus, this is a puzzle that really should have a "I think I should do this" voice line from Mac. Because I honestly thought that you had to combine the rings so that all the bumps would be filled in each thingy. Yeah, I literally didn't even know where to start with this one. Anyways, after we open the door,
What the hell?
Wake up. Wake up, Alice. Look, I'm glad you followed the breadcrumbs, Mr. McPherson. I wanted you to witness my latest masterpiece. Wake up, dear. I wouldn't want you to miss the pain.
that's so sad. I love Mac. I don't want him to suffer. I was so shocked too because I thought that Ida was Vic's grandmother. Like, I don't know, maybe she got her looks from her mom or something, you know? Something nice about this plot twist is that if you didn't pay attention to that first scene where we start reading the reports from our grandfather, you're completely like, Ida's our grandmother. But if you paid attention, it actually shows for a few seconds a picture of Milena with the ugly necklace, so you know from the start that she's our grandmother. But still you're like, okay, but how did it happen, you know? So I like this type of plot twist. It works for both types of people. Anyways, now we're at Richard's gallery with him trying to interpret Ackerman's paintings. And obviously failing because no art gallery owner's first guess will be that these are murder paintings. But anyways, he also talks about the Chicago paintings, but at the time of writing this, I haven't played Still Life 2 yet, so I don't know how relevant these are. I'll edit them in or out depending on what happens.
This one is called The Pupil. The title suggests that Mark connected with the subject of this painting. Although trapped in his own prison, Ackerman was able to find escape through his pupil, represented by the light reflecting through the window onto the subject. He is using this man to escape from his own prison. Ah, Beatrice. The woman depicted here, a nurse, seems to represent Mark's ideal woman, and perhaps she was. Attentive, loving, and seductive, she is surrounded by angelic hues of white. Her skin tone is rich and alive, in contrast to his earlier works.
After our art lesson, we talked to Mia, and she tells us that she didn't know who the fourth girl at the club was. Only she, Stephanie, and Cynthia were friends. The other one kept her distance, so no lead there. We then asked Richard to give us a list of everyone who was involved with this Ackerman project, since he isn't well known as a painter, so it has to be an inside job. He tells us that it's gonna take some time, so yeah, smell you later. Back to the office, we're trying to access some files through Claire's computer, but it's clearance level 4 and she's only 2. She tells us that, hey, you didn't hear this from me, but Todd is clearance level 4. So yeah. We clog up the coffee machine to distract the janitor and grab his keys, and into Todd's office we go. We beeline it for the safe, but there's a print scanner. I don't know, you really shouldn't have a print scanner to protect your prized possessions when literally in the next room there's some print lifting equipment and you have a coffee mug which you and only you always use, with your name on it. Just a thought. Here we grab the security key to the elevator, and using the computer we find out that it's password protected, so we're gonna have to go check the physical archives downstairs. Here there's some SWAT equipment and this little robot that's gonna go through this vent here and then disarm the deadly lasers in the archive entrance for us. But in the archives we find out that all the files relating to Mark Ackerman and the Ripper were destroyed, except a few of the files were actually checked out by Mac. I wonder if we still have them at home somewhere. As we're leaving, Browning shows up like, you got some explaining to do. And we're like, I quit. And he's like, I'm not letting you get away with this. And we're like, I think you are, unless you want your name in a certain list that you got earlier leaked to the press. Honestly, Vic, you should have just followed in your grandfather's footsteps from the get-go, but better late than never. At home, we investigate the very few things there are to investigate, and notice that there's something in the head of Baphomet painting.
I was living a nightmare. Edith's suffering had just ended, and mine was only beginning. I took to the streets, blinded by sorrow. Why couldn't I protect her? What if I hadn't taken the case? But Milena's sweet voice brought me back to reason. She suggested we hide somewhere since the police were sure to be looking for me. Vladana's place was the safest spot, but we couldn't stay for long. We all had our reasons for leaving Prague. As for me, I wanted to get back at the bastard. We got out of the city on a small boat, and a couple of Roman's friends set us up with a ride to another town. From there, we took a train to Le Havre, France. We bought 4 tickets for New York City. America wasn't the country I had left behind. Poverty was at an all-time high, and the economy at an all-time low. We managed to get in through some of my connections. Then I got this in the mail. One article was about a series of murders in Chicago that were the same as the ones in Prague. I contacted Chicago authorities, but they wanted more proof. Even so, it was enough for them to confront Herbert Ackerman. He countered with an offer they couldn't refuse. Money, lots of it. Ackerman's name was safe, but they forced him to commit Mark to an institution. Fearing blame for the murders, I crept into the offices and stole any documents that might protect me. I found a full confession signed by Ackerman telling the story of his son. That bastard is in the loony bin where he deserves to be. I heard that they moved out west. Some years after, a cop from LA contacted me about a case. Strange murders of prostitutes, badly mutilated. I sent him what I could, but I told him I wasn't going near it. I wasn't going to sacrifice the one I loved again. Milena and I got married and settled down in Chicago. I went back to the ordinary missing persons and cheating husband cases. And gladly, too.
And Mac gave the relevant files to the LA officer who was investigating the new series of murders. The guy thought that Ackerman Sr. was behind it, but Mac thought that it had to be Mark. Maybe through a pupil or something. Just then, Claire calls us, telling us that Vaclav called us, saying that he heard screams from his neighbor's apartment, and we ran over there to check it out.
Mia? McPherson. I need assistance.
Yes, ma'am. Please give me the address and location.
I'm at the university. I'm... Ouch! Oh my god, this is worse than a hangover. Mia's not there, which means that she might still be alive. Where did he take Mia? Think, Vic. Think! The messages he leaves behind. Of course, the paintings!
Oh my god, Vic's little dog is driving me insane. Run! At Richard's gallery, we look at the paintings, noting that the one with the bridge behind it hasn't been used yet. Looking up the keywords Prague, Chicago, and bridge, we find out that there's a bridge here in the city that's a replica of the bridge in the painting. That's gotta be it. Along with the credits, there are some illustrations that show Mia at the hospital, and then we get this last scene.
Hello?
Hello, sweetie. I heard that you were released from the hospital. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. Did they find the body?
No, not yet. They're still dragging the riverbed and diving.
Damn.
I know how you feel. I want closure too.
I got my tickets for LA.
You still think you're gonna find answers over there? You got him, sweetie. It's over.
Not for me. Claire, I'm gonna have to let you go. I'm gonna rest for a while.
Okay, I'll drop by later and see how you're doing.
Okay, bye.
And that's the end of Still Life. So Still Life is obviously like 34 different upgrades from Postmortem. I had very punctual problems with the game, nothing overarching to make note of. I think my biggest issue was the Vic jog. It threw me off so much whenever we had to hurry and she was just jogging. Is it a little disappointing that this is a two-parter? Yeah. But hey, we got a lot in this game, and there's Still Life too, so it's not like we have to wait for the conclusion or anything. I do think that the story in Postmortem was more interesting, but like, it was so poorly told that I'll take a simpler but much more professionally told story over it any day. I do recommend it, it gets my seal of approval. So the problems start before we even boot up the game, because Still Life 2 is so abandoned by God and everyone else that there are no guides on how to make it run properly. I just use the method that works for Still Life 1 and hope for the best. Second problem is that this game was released in 2009. Girl, that's too long for a sequel that takes place immediately after the first one and is the conclusion to the mystery. Black Mirror 2 and 3 were released only 2 years apart and they're nearly perfect. What happened with Still Life? Anyways, let's get into the actual game. It starts with a mix of the first and last cutscenes of the previous game, but like severely compressed for some reason. Okay. I don't know why it looks that way. This cutscene from this game looks pretty good and...
Vic McPherson. Hi, Vic. It's Claire. So, how are things going in Los Angeles?
Oh my god. What happened here? What happened? Why does Still Life 2 look worse than Postmortem? They couldn't even get the original voice actors, and yeah, everyone here is doing a bad job. I'm gonna speedrun this prologue because I have some news that might shock you. This game ain't about us tracking the cult of Mark Ackerman or whatever. It's about some other killer. Yeah, all that build up about us going to LA and like, Vic already talked to the cop who got the files from Mac. She already did everything, and basically, Mark died in a fire in the asylum, the guy who was actually carrying out the LA murders pissed out, Beatrice, the nurse who Mark painted, created a foundation to help out small artists, coincidentally funded by Ackerman Sr. Also, her son's middle name is Mark. So, okay, she had a son with a patient at the mental institution, fine. And the son had a son named Richard, like our Richard, it seems. By the way, Richard has the twinkiest voice ever here, further supporting my theory. And then Vic's like, no, that's impossible, I need to go back to Chicago to be sure. And then it jumps to 2008, she's back in the FBI investigating a completely different killer. Like... Okay, let's unpack all of this before we go any further. First off, this game looks bad. And like, god, it controls bad. Just fixed camera, new camera for new location. Room too big, 2 cameras that don't move. The way they went about the camera is so finicky and ugh. Look at the movement, it looks awful. And the inventory. Ooh, look at me, I'm making the game harder because now you can't carry 57 things in your pockets. It's so buggy. Like, Vic's fingers clipping through the laptop. Can you believe that a graphical bug that atrocious happens in the prologue? Okay, now onto the story. To be quite frank, I feel like the story was concluded in Still Life. Yeah, there could be a cult following the teachings of Ackerman, but like, be honest, what interesting twist could that bring? It would be a boring, purely bureaucratical investigation, not a story to be told. There was no mystery left. So yeah, if you stop to think about it for 10 minutes, there was no reason for us to go to LA with Vic. However, that's something you realize before sequel baiting. Seriously, the people at Microids don't stop to think about what they're doing. So that's why I think that the prologue is forgivable. Yes, it's an incredibly sloppy way to conclude the story of the first game, but if we had to investigate the Ackerman stuff, it would be really boring and these devs wouldn't be able to write an interesting story. It's not as bad as it could be, like if they just did it for the lols. Fine, let's see what Vic's up to now. The new serial killer we're following has been dubbed East Coast Killer, And his MO is that he tortures victims for several days, playing escape room games with them and stuff, records everything, kills them with a shot to the head, then dumps the bodies somewhere. Yeah, the victims are all young, attractive women. When has a serial killer ever targeted men or ugly people? Middle-aged people. Anyways, let's not go down this tangent. He cleans everything thoroughly and up until now hasn't made a single mistake that would reveal clues to his identity. This reporter, Paloma Hernandez, is following the case closely, and Vic's pissed because she keeps saying that she's incompetent on TV. She hasn't made much progress and these killings have been going on for 3 years. Yeah. By the way, they pronounce Hernandez like Hernandez. Girl, not to throw stones from a glass house, but like, I've never heard anyone say it like that. Was that a conscious decision, or had no one at Microids HQ ever heard anyone say Hernandez out loud? Or is that really a way that some people say it? Anyways, soon we receive a call from Hernandez herself, offering us a deal. She's in contact with an informant who could shed some light on the case, but she wants exclusive access to the FBI investigation. You know, the scoop of it all. Vic loses it and says, if you're concealing information that could help the investigation, you're going to the slammer, Hernandez. And then...
I hate being hung up on.
Vic McPherson, please leave a message after the beep. End of recording. To hear your message again, please press pound.
The star of my next film is finally awake. Welcome to my humble abode, Ms. Hernandez.
You must feel a little lost. Don't worry. I'm going to take good care of you.
Listen, I don't know what you intend to do. Maybe we can make a deal?
I doubt that. I want to do away with those who are tracking me. Their interference doesn't amuse me anymore. You are one of those people, Hernandez. You're the one who dubbed me the East Coast Killer. It's time you understand what really lies behind those meaningless words. I know who your informant is. The former FBI agent, James Hawker. He's going to die, just like you. Of course, I'll be much quicker with him. He doesn't have your charm. I have to leave you for the moment. I have a few things to arrange to take care of your friend Hawker. See you very soon, gorgeous.
Okay, great, let's escape. I get stuck within 5 minutes. I checked the walkthrough because, my god, I've made the shock collar go off like 50 times already. What did I miss? And I realized that a huge part of this game is something that I think everyone hates. Objects that you can look at, but then there's another part of the object that you can interact with. But there's no visual clue that they're separate entities or anything like that. Anything the character says. Nothing. So great, we short circuit the thing that's shocking us, grab the stoker from the fireplace, and okay, I'll pay this game a compliment. I like this escape room section with Paloma, it's pretty cool. And I don't know if this game has multiple endings, probably not considering what we're seeing here, but who knows. But there's a mechanic here that could impact endings and it's pretty cool. In the furnace, there are some pamphlets for a store in a certain town. Maybe a place nearby? These clues about our whereabouts are completely optional, you can complete this section without noticing anything. So I like how you can be rewarded for your exploration later. I'm using a lot of can, might, maybe, because again, look at this game, I don't know if they actually put this to use. Anyways, we use the stoker to pry the boards from the window, put our items in this wardrobe to grab the mattress, throw it out the window so we can safely land on it. Making a beeline for the car because that's what everyone would do in this situation, there's a locked box on the back and our phone locked in the front, which we have to get. There's not even the option to explore the house. I don't know, I had the impression that the killer was gonna actually leave to take care of the informant, but maybe not, maybe the informant's in here. So we continue to explore outside. Here, yes, there's a ladder so we can go back up and grab our prized possessions, but also part of a railroad track, and it says BAR. Another clue as to where we are. We climb up, grab the stoker, climb down, break the car window, and womp womp, the key isn't in the ignition. Who leaves the keys in the ignition? Like, why do people still hope to find the keys when I've never seen anyone do that? Our phone is dead also, but we get the key for that box. And in it, there's a phone charger and a receipt for a gas station in Vancouver. We climb back up and call Vic, telling her about the clues we got on our location. But then, oh no, the killer's back. We're now back to playing as Vic, and it's time to investigate Paloma's room. And here's another thing that I really like here, the FBI kit we get. There's a 3D scanner, Q-tips, electronic nose, luminol, fingerprinting, the gang's all here. Shame we are almost certainly never gonna use this again, but hey. Also, this is our partner, Garrus. Honestly, I liked Miller, they could have brought him back, but not a huge deal. On to the room. And we have a problem with the inventory again, I forgot to mention it. But like, you have to open the inventory with a right click, and then you left click on the item you wanna use, and then you right click again to leave the menu and use it. Which like, I don't know how else they could have done that inventory with just a mouse, but like, it is very counterintuitive because to me it would be like, okay, I left click the item to grab it and right click to drop it, you know, like cancel my grabbing, but what it actually does is leave the menu so you can use it. It's not the worst, but it's not the best, and that problem with like you having to be in the vicinity of what you're gonna use the item on We don't have that problem anymore because we have now the problem of the camera. So you have to be in a specific spot to even see what you're gonna use the item on, so there is no problem, but I think that the camera is a bigger problem than that inventory problem. But anyways, on to Paloma's room. The killer left a message for us on the phone.
I've kept you a place in my cold room, McPherson.
But he electronically modifies his voice, so there's nothing there. Next, this footprint here. Yep, it's his. Ooh, the remote fell under the bed. Maybe there are fingerprints. Yeah, but they're Hernandez's. The other clues we find are equally useful. I mean, be honest, a guy calm and methodical to the point of leaving the pamphlet to the hotel they're in, which claims to be known for its peace and quiet, on top of the bed as a joke. A joke which Vic doesn't get, by the way. I mean, damn, how did you get in the FBI as a profiler of killers if you can't pick up on the fact that your killer made a joke? Anyways, a guy like that. You think he left any DNA traces of himself? Yeah, don't think so. We then open this suitcase, which contains a DVD. We pop it into the camcorder and it's Paloma's interview with the informant. Former FBI agent James Hawker, our old partner. Talking to Garrus, Vic reveals that he was dismissed because he shot a suspect, and killing someone who doesn't pose immediate threat is inexcusable. And it seems that after that, Vic refused to take a partner to field for 2 years. Until recently, that is. Garrus was assigned like a few weeks ago. No one knows exactly what to make of him. Anyways, before we can find out what Hawker's theory on the killer's criteria is, we get that call from Paloma, and now we're back to playing with her. We're in the cell and the killer says that he injected us with poison, so we need to find the antidote. Okay, section where you die over and over again until you find the optimal route. That I can do, except it only took 2 tries. Okay, 3, but that's only because when I tried to turn the vials with the possible antidotes into individual items, the game told me that it wasn't possible instead of telling me that my inventory was too full for that. And the first time around I had inventory space and it wouldn't let me pick up the items, but whatever. We already know that this game is a buggy mess. What I did is grab the mattress, put it over the shards of glass in front of the door. While we're at it, grab the memory card from this box near the door, push the bed to be able to reach the first aid cabinet, grab the bottle and the 4 tubes, dilute the green stuff with water, mix the green stuff with the liquids, whatever turns black is the antidote, and we're safe for now. And then do it all over again because I got stuck in a chair in the next room and the last time I saved was at the start of the poison section. And our net worth after all that is not poisoned anymore. We managed to get the shock collar off. No, yeah, that's it. In this next room there are several doors and an electric chair with this control panel. And from what the killer said, he's kinda obsessed with the justice system. Potentially interesting. Sitting down on the chair, we can rotate it, seeing the names of the previous victims and numbers. And there's ours. The number is 129. We have to input that number in the control panel, so turn 50 twice, we have 100, -1. We get shocked, but get to proceed. Now onto the morgue section. We grab this empty spray bottle and fill it up with water after a brief rearranging of our inventory and, in the morgue, grab this surgical instrument and this revealing powder to mix with the water. Great. Now what? Here there's this door, 2 letters painted on the tiles, a countdown clock that's off, this butcher sign, the morgue freezers which are locked, and this shirt that absolutely cannot help us in any way. I do kinda the only thing that I can and spray the revealing substance on the letter tiles. And that forms the words press here. And then the countdown clock begins. By process of elimination, our only prospect is this keypad that I forgot to mention. I forgot to mention when I was listing the stuff in the room. But there's a keypad here. And again, by process of elimination, the only numbers we have are the dates of the interviews that are shown in this little voice recorder. I think that's what this is. Anyways, the memory card we grabbed in the room has these dates. So we input the dates and that opens these 3 freezer drawers where one letter of each mannequin's name is underlined. We press the tiles corresponding to the letters and boom, the door is bricked. What did you expect? The killer says that he's gonna give us a break since he has to prepare for the next scene, so now we are more or less free to explore around. The butcher sign seems hollow, so we smash it with a fire extinguisher to find this box. Back downstairs, we grab this lamp, back up. Oh, okay, it's the thingy to make the elevator we're in work. We do some electrical engineering and yay, freedom! Or... Now we're back with Vic. Thanks to Paloma's little investigation, the police was able to find the location overnight, but neither the killer nor Paloma are in the house anymore. And we actually get to use the FBI kit again, a rare win for this game. We find car tracks and a whole bunch of Paloma. Paloma blood, Paloma fingerprints, Paloma hair, more Paloma blood. We also noticed some odd things as if someone had investigated the house before us. Confronting the sheriff, she tells us that what she collected was for a local case, a missing hunter or something, had nothing to do with our case. Aside from the fact that it was in the same creepy abandoned electric fenced house as our killer. But, you know. Luckily, Claire comes to the rescue, telling us that a friend in the morgue area of expertise called her, saying that the sheriff had sent 2 samples for analysis in relation to the East Coast killer. We caught you with the hand in the cookie jar! Vic threatens her and she hands over, I don't know, what I suppose will allow us to collect the results, and this electronic key. We also ask her to talk to the local pharmacist about a receipt we found in the house, and the guy says that he remembers a man in his 40s with black hair. Vic complains that it's not much, but like, have you ever stopped to think about how many people in the world aren't men in their 40s with black hair? Also, Vic is scared of fire apparently. This kinda comes out of nowhere here, but I guess she never had to deal with fire in still life, so I'll let it slide, I guess. We also find out that our guy is a movie buff. He wrote several movie scripts and owns several books on cinema, more specifically 50s cinema. It's also very telling that all his prized possessions, including mementos from the previous victims and these scripts, have been left behind. Down in this room, we find some papers with a thesis. No name, but the paper is from a university in California. So we inform Claire of this new discovery so she can run it in the database. Then we see probably the freakiest thing we're gonna see in this game.
Unbelievable. She's been dead for over 15 years.
I don't know who joined the team after post-mortem and started making these images of corpses, but like, that person needs a raise. I don't know why they're so effective. They just are. And the fact that she's been there for over 10 years, it ties the murder itself with a missing person no one ever heard from again. I don't know, it gives me the chills. Anyways, in this operating table, we find more of Hernandez's blood. Her chances are not looking so great. We also managed to get into the morgue, and remember that shirt Paloma thought nothing of? Yeah, we spray it with luminol and there's a stain of blood from an unidentified man. Maybe our guy? And then, climbing this staircase, I get stuck in the corner. Vic won't walk, and both the options to open the door and to walk to the previous room are disabled for some reason. Luckily, calling Claire fixed that. Fun fact about this game number 23. The playable characters have a few voice lines for when you try to use the wrong item on something, but they're the same voice line. Not just the words, they're literally the same for both Paloma and Vic. And I think it's Paloma's voice, which makes even less sense. Great job, everyone! Continuing the exploration of the house, we find this carved into the wood. A military insignia, huh? We then ask Garrus to open this door here, and yeah, okay, I must have forgotten to collect some evidence to trigger the story to progress. A few bloodstains later, Claire calls us.
Vic, that's it. We have a name. Our suspect's name is David Carson.
Then Garrus opens the door to the room Vic is reluctant to go in since there are traces of a fire having happened there. And then...
Richard? Are you there? Richard?
Okay, so I guess we aren't done with Ackerman yet. So basically we find the killer's cape in Richard's wardrobe. Stop, please, this is just getting worse and worse. He arrives, we confront him about being the killer, he tries to deny it, but we're like, just admit it. And he does this evil face before we snap back to reality. You know what's worse? Richard's model kinda looks like Ackerman's. So this wasn't a flex tape they added to the story. This was actually planned. Anyways, in the balcony here, we find blood belonging to that hunter that went missing a few months ago, who the sheriff was looking for. And in the room, we find the surveillance system that seems to be still working, so we ask Garrus to fix it while we go talk to our old partner, Hawker, who's just arrived. It's what you'd expect. You haven't changed, McPherson. Neither have you, Hawker. We then go talk to the sheriff and tell her about the hunter's fate, and as a favor, she speeds up the process of collecting info on the house, and turns out that a nuclear bunker was built under the property. She also mentions a metal detector, so we borrow it to find the bunker entrance. But we can't do anything here for now. Back to Hawker, we fight, immediately make peace, and then he reveals that the killer's criteria is that he's obsessed with Veronica Lake, an actress from the 40s. And we ask him to figure out the computer password, which ends up being Veronica's birth name. From here, we can unlock the hatch door, but it's password protected. Why can't we ask Hawker again to figure this one out? But what's this? A text file titled Codes. We just have to decrypt it using the FBI pen drive, and boom, there it is.
Do you have something new?
I've managed to open the shelter hatch. I'll go down and try to find Hernandez.
I'm going with you.
I'll call Garrus for backup.
Damn, could the police be more incompetent? Anyways, we're back with Richard and he shows us the last painting by Ackerman, and it's Beatrice burning. Okay, but that would be deviating from his MO because he also died in that fire. So this is purely imagination? Well, who cares? I'm gonna spare you. This conversation is supposed to be emotional, but Richard's voice actor does such a bad job. He reminds me of the twin Pinocchio. Remember him? Father, when can I leave to be on my own? I've got the whole world to see. You are too. Anyways, we tell him that we're gonna have to turn him in to the police, and he's like, ha, fat chance I'll rot in a cell like Grandpa, and sets himself ablaze. Okay, so that's why she's scared of fire, but like, there was no chemistry between them. She has every motive on planet Earth to completely villainize him in her head, not even see him as human anymore. But I guess we're just different people, Vic and I. So now we're stuck in the bunker. Great. And the killer's like, ha 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 ha, there are so many things we can do. But like, the FBI already knows their location. Don't you think it's gonna be kinda suspicious when all communication ceases? And when they find the bodies? Also, this is getting a bit too fantastic. Like, the killer took out what? There were 4 already dead around Vic, if I'm not mistaken. And this isn't a franchise where this type of crazy stuff happens. Like, okay, Max Visions, sure. The rich and powerful buying everyone out. Yes, obviously don't be naive as to say that that's a fantastic element. But crazy archer killer taking out half a dozen armed police officers like it's nothing? Moving on, we're back to playing as Hernandez, locked up in our cell. Exploring around, we find this piece of metal, string, magnets, and this plastic container, which we can use to reach the vent up here. But it's bolted to the wall, and apparently the magnet's no good for the screws. With nothing left to do, we call out for Vic, but this guy in the cell in front of us answers. He's Anderson, the missing hunter who was supposedly killed by the East Coast killer. We talk to him for a while, and he says that he tried to escape using a fork, but the killer caught him and locked him up in that cell, which has the vent welded shut. We ask him to throw the fork, and we catch it with a magnet and string. And now we can leave the cell. We ask Anderson about the cell codes, and he says that the one to ours starts with a 4 and ends with a 5, and it's 5 or 6 digits long. Well, better than nothing. We then try to talk to Vic. She's still groggy, but we managed to get that memo with the names out of her again.
Code? That sort of rings a bell. I found a series of codes in the cellular computer. I've also got a series of first and last names. On the list, my first name is connected with the name Stanton.
Am I on that list?
Yes, Paloma. Martin. If Hawker's right, it must be the name of a character played by Veronica Lake.
So, using the numbers the hunter gave us as a base, we can discard the vodka method right away. And so we can create a numbers alphabet correspondence to find the codes like A1, B2, etc. The door opens, but unfortunately Vic's still under the weather. So we give her some random pills and yahoo, let's do this. We open the hatch, go up, and... yeah, now the finicky game requires precise movements. Or else. Essentially, it's a pressure grenade, it only detonates once you take the weight away. So we put some heavy stuff on top of it, and also take the keypad from this thingy, and that stops the electricity going through here. Heading inside the house, we notice a dead rat on the floor. And surprise! There are traps which we disarm. In the living room, we take these reflectors and this laser emitter. Something. All that after I rearrange my inventory, of course. We then head to the basement where we have this laser puzzle and you could not pay me money to explain what happened here. I guess the laser thingy we got neutralizes the yellow one? No one told me that. I was just stuck here for long enough that I took the chance. Because like, this buggy mask doesn't move Vic when she can walk past these lasers. I have clicked so many times she doesn't move. I had to interact with this locker here so she could move. Anyways, I eventually managed to turn the lasers off. Hip hip hooray. Oh, run! The killer's gonna do something. Up here, we grab this remote and head back to the back of the house. And shout out to this graphical bug. With the remote, we can turn the electricity back on here and electrocute the killer when he walks past. We call him to bait him here and wait. Whew, finally! We go back to the basement computer to scoop around some more, but there we find this file. This is our killer. He has an accomplice and was pretending to be Anderson, one of his victims. And we left Hernandez down there with him. Back down in the bunker, there's no one here, but there are several traces of Carson's blood. Maybe Hernandez managed to knock him out or something. We can now access the room belonging to the guy we killed and find some explosives there. Great. And also he's the guy from the Navy, I guess. So that's why the military insignia earlier. Then in Carson's room there was that welded vent.
Kaboom!
We can now access this set of doors. We pick this one's lock and in it there's a computer that only turns on with biometric recognition. In this room there's also a hatch, so we climb up, finding Hawker's hanging corpse. We cut the rope only to find that it's actually Garrus. Why would the killer bother with switching their clothes? Also, I don't know why, but I find Garrus's closed eyes here really funny. They look like fake lashes. Anyways, back down and back up, cut the killer's accomplice's finger off, back to the computer, and great, it's on. And we see that the killer is with Paloma and ooh, can we skip this? Paloma flees and barricades herself in the basement. Hawker shows up out of nowhere and kills Carson. We have to collect the bullets that killed Carson and the one that killed Garrus like 4 times over because of a bug. See that they came from the same gun. And then Hawker reveals that he's been behind all this scheme ever since he left the FBI. Because, I don't know, he snapped and he's like, ooh, the FBI is a joke, total freedom in murder, I don't know. It's, you know how this story goes. This is getting really ridiculous, not gonna lie. And then we get another section with Evil Richard. Please, game, please stop reminding me that that happened. My god, is he ugly. And also, my god, that is such a lazy, just terrible conclusion that you planned. It's awful. And then there's this section where we have to go after Hawker, and the bad movement of the game is more frustrating than ever before, and also the inventory gets super annoying. because sometimes it's a timed section, but then there is nowhere to like unload your inventory nearby, and you have to load a save that's like 2 hours prior just to be able to manage the inventory. It sucks. We almost have him in the kitchen, but he escapes. We grab another bomb and explode this last locked door, where Hernandez is. She tells us that Hawker's in the next room and that he's armed, but we use the good old turn the fan velocity up to make more noise and ambush him. The crazy bitch still tries to react, but we have him. Well done. We go into the room to save Paloma, but of course he arranged everything just in case he died. Of course! But like, we have a gun, several tools, and 2 lockpicks. Of course we get Paloma out of here.
Love is like a melody, one that I will always treasure.
Oh, and Hawker says, you only have one chance. If this were a video game, I'd program it so that you wouldn't be able to go back and try again. Having that feature in your poorly made, buggy game is a choice. Plus, if you realize you're gonna fail, just reload the save. You can still do that. Like, he said that and I was like, oh, hold on, I didn't explore the whole basement. Let me go back. And I load the save, no problem. I guess if you want to see both endings, you're just gonna have to play this piece of crap all over again. Where was I? Oh yeah, there's still a bomb that we have to disarm. Just end already. Stop with this. But I got you this time. No, you didn't. We cut some wires to match the amperage, blah 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 blah, and it ends. The game ends. Paloma has her scoop and Victoria lives to slay another day. Do I need to say anything? No, really, I think the quality of Still Life 2 has been made pretty clear. It just shouldn't exist. The amount of times I soft-locked myself and had to reload a save was unbelievable. They give you 2 knives and 2 pick tools, for example. I'm guessing to suit your exploration so you don't have to find exactly those 15 pixels in exactly that part of the house, so that you don't have to open every single drawer. But then the game soft-locks itself if you don't do things in a certain order. An order that is oftentimes incomprehensible, illogical. I don't know why. And you literally can't progress past certain points unless you grab all the evidence. Yes, the FBI field kit is one of the few highlights in Still Life 2. But like, we already know that Paloma was here. Is the 34th droplet of blood really that crucial to the investigation that the story can't go on without it? The story is poorly written, it's buggy, it's broken, and it's ugly. No old school charm here, it's just plain ugly. And the characters have 0 facial expressions. Like, in the previous game, I could see when Vic was angry. In Postmortem, that feature was a little bit more limited, but people did like have surprised expressions, or Mac had his angry expression. Here, it's nothing. Vic always has this face. Paloma always has the face card. Why? I don't think I need to tell you not to buy this. So yeah, that was the Still Life trilogy. In my opinion, the only game that's truly worth buying is Still Life. Then there's Postmortem, which falls in the category of I like it, but would never recommend it to anyone. And then there's Still Life 2, which please don't. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and blah 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 blah. And I'll make more videos if an anvil doesn't fall on my head. Bye!